Chapter 1859. Shi Shang didn't expect that the celebrity didn't come after her. She wandered around the area for a while but didn't see anyone. Shi Shang guessed that the celebrity might be preparing for something big. The tanned little boy was standing not far away from Shi Shang with a few pieces of unknown food. He looked at her timidly. "This is the food that Captain Jian asked me to bring to you." Food. He hadn't sent food to I for the past few days. What's wrong with him today? Why did he send food to I? No. Shi Shang refused. The boy's lips moved as if he wanted to persuade her, but he didn't say anything in the end. He hesitated for a while and approached her carefully. "They said that you're a deity?" Shi Shang said with a straight face. "Yes." The boy took a few steps closer and lowered his voice as if he was afraid of offending her. "Can you prove it?" Shi Shang snorted and walked towards a dark passage. "Why should I prove it to you? It's up to you whether you want to believe it or not." The boy held the black food and paced around for a while before following Shi Shang. Shi Shang walked a little fast and the boy couldn't keep up with her. The further they walked, the darker it got. They couldn't see anything. The boy stumbled and bumped into the wall a few times. This passage led to the entrance of the upper level. A thick layer of sand had accumulated there. Shi Shang walked out of the entrance. It was afternoon outside and the sun was shining brightly, baking the earth. The heat was like the waves of the sea. What are you doing up there?" The boy stood at the bottom and asked in a muffled voice. "Looking at the scenery." The boy looked like he had been struck by lightning. There was yellow sand everywhere. What scenery was there to look at? Was the thought process of a deity different from that of an ordinary person? Shi Shang stood under the yellow sand and pondered about life. The sand hit her face painfully, but she didn't react. Her eyes were searching for something in the yellow sand. "Host, what are you doing?" Shi Shang looked solemn. "Feeling the noise of the wind and sand." "Speak human language." "Host, I'm in despair." Shi Shang wiped his face and said, "Something's coming." Although she didn't know what it was, she sensed danger. Intuition was useful most of the time, so Shi Shang decided to run away. "Where are you going?" Seeing that the Shi Shang was about to leave, the little boy chased after him in a few steps. As soon as he came up, he was filled with a mouthful of sand. "Ahem. Where are you going? Don't wander around. Ahem, it's easy to get lost." The little boy's voice was somewhat broken by the wind and sand. Before the end of his voice could be heard, it had already disappeared. Shi Shang's figure was blurred by the wind and sand. It was as if he was looking at flowers in the fog. Due to the lack of nutrition all year round, his figure began to sway as if he could be blown away by the wind and sand at any time. When the boy wanted to turn back, it was already too late. He could not find the way up. The only thing he could see was the blurry figure in front of him. He gritted his teeth and followed the blurry figure. It was still afternoon, but in the blink of an eye, the sky was covered with dark clouds. Thunder rumbled, and it looked as if it was going to rain at any time. Countless yellow sand formed a giant tornado that swept across the sky. The momentum was so majestic that it seemed as if it was going to destroy the world. The tornado was coming from the direction where Jian Yi's team was at. With such a strong tornado, the subway station that had been in disrepair all year round would definitely not be able to withstand it. Jian Yi's team had also discovered the tornado. They had been crawling in the yellow sand for so many years, so it was impossible for them not to know how terrifying the tornado was. Therefore, they began to evacuate as soon as they discovered the tornado. The tornado came too quickly, so they couldn't take everything with them. Everyone went into the battle lightly. They only took the most important food and water with them. The group of people ran in the yellow sand. Shi Shang, who had run first, eventually turned back. She discovered that there was also a tornado coming from the other side, and it was even more terrifying than the one from the other side. The little boy followed her like a roly-poly toy. He could be swept away by the wind at any time. Both teams met up on a sand dune. "Xiao Yuan, why are you here?" Jen E was furious when she saw the little boy. They had wasted a lot of time looking for him just now. The little boy's body swayed, and his face was full of guilt. Captain Jen, let's leave this place first, the people behind reminded her. The tornado is coming soon. Hurry up and come back. Jen Yi's face turned cold, but it wasn't hard to tell that she was worried about the little boy. The little boy quickly returned to the team. Jen Yi glanced at Shi Sheng. The wind made her clothes flutter, but she wasn't affected by the wind at all. She was as steady as a rock. You can't go over there. The little boy yelled at the top of his voice. Jen Yi was stunned at first, but she quickly understood what he meant. Go that way. The group of people supported each other to prevent themselves from being blown away by the wind. It was extremely difficult for them to walk. Shi Shang casually walked beside them. If it weren't for the sound of her skirt fluttering in the wind, no one would have thought she was walking in the middle of a garden full of blooming flowers. Some of the people from the previous team were walking beside Shi Sheng. Although the wind was strong, they could still recognize Shi Sheng. Why is she still alive? How would I know? Could she be a ghost? Some of them were fearful. Shi Sheng wasn't walking very fast, but she was still some distance away from them. With the wind and sand blocking her, her figure was blurry. They couldn't see her clearly, like a ghost. They saw it with their own eyes. How could she appear here again? Impossible. I saw Captain Jen looking at her just now, someone retorted. Shi Shang's speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Sometimes she walked in front of them, and sometimes she walked behind them. She was no different from a ghost, and the group of people were so scared that they almost peed their pants. If you didn't do anything wrong, you wouldn't be afraid of ghosts. Ah! A scream was suddenly heard, and the wind and sand cut it into an even sharper sound. Then, a black figure was swept into the sky and sucked into the tornado. In the blink of an eye, the figure disappeared. After the first person was unlucky, the second person was quickly sucked into the tornado in the same way and disappeared in front of everyone. This happened so quickly that they almost couldn't react. After the second and third scream, they finally came back to their senses. They held hands and formed a line to prevent themselves from being swept into the sky. Aren't you a god? Jen Yi had appeared beside Shi Shang. The wind and sand had almost blown her face out of shape. Shi Shang looked at her calmly through the wind and sand. So what if I am? Then you have the ability to stop this wind and sand, right? Jen Yi asked. Shi Shang was speechless. If it was a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, he might be able to save it. However, if it was a natural disaster, how could he save it? Chapter 1860. Shi Shang's face instantly turned cold. Immortals don't interfere with the affairs of mortals. Otherwise, it's against the rules of heaven. Jen Yi was speechless. Who would believe her? Why did she really think that she was an immortal? Was lunacy contagious? However, Jen Yi didn't have time to think about this. Everyone, hold on tight. Don't let go. Don't let go. This was a sandstorm that could blow people into the sky. Once they let go, it would be over. Jen Yi reminded them again and again, but some people still let go and were swept into the air by the sandstorm. The originally large group was now very small. Jen Yi wanted to help, but she was powerless. She was the leader, but at this moment, she had to watch so many people get swept away by the sandstorm. Why isn't she affected at all? You're asking me? Who should I ask? The person next to her yelled in frustration. Damn it! They were about to lose their lives. Who had the mood to care about others? There's a place to hide in front. Everyone, hurry up. Jen Yi walked in front and pointed at a slightly taller and sturdier building in the distance. This building was very big. It was probably a landmark building in the past. Such buildings were usually designed to be shockproof. They were very sturdy and had a basement to hide from the tornadoes above. Jen Yi took the lead and entered the building. She received everyone at the entrance and entered the building one by one. Shi Shang was originally walking at the back. She waited for everyone to enter before moving forward. As soon as she stepped forward, a strong force came from her left. She was pushed by someone, and her entire body deviated from the path that she came from. What was even more frightening was that a sandstorm came from the side. Shi Shang's figure was instantly drowned. The celebrity grabbed Jian Yi's hand and entered the building. She snorted at the empty air and swayed her small waist as she entered. Jian Yi's expression was a little strange, but she didn't intend to blame the celebrity. She continued to receive the others. "Okay, everyone go in." Jian Yi glanced at the sandstorm. "Hurry up. Go down to the basement." The last few people entered the basement. Jian Yi's people brought up the rear. One of them was a little worried. "Captain Jian, that woman. Let's go in first. If that lunatic was really a deity, she could definitely solve this small problem. If she wasn't, then she could only express her regret." When they entered, they realized that this place looked like a government office. There was indeed a passageway below, but it needed to be opened. A group of people were stuck on the first floor. The tornado outside seemed to be close, and it was noisily flipping over the buildings outside. All kinds of crashing sounds seemed to be smashing the tip of their hearts. "Smash it." Jian Yi made a prompt decision. It was too late to go out now, and even if they did not find a place to take refuge, they would still die. Just as they were about to smash open the door leading to the underground tunnel, the rusty door opened with a creak. A young girl in a long black dress was holding onto the door frame. The rust on the door reflected her white hands, making them look like white jade. Her fingernails were a light pink. "Hi." Shi Shang waved at them. There was a strange silence outside. "Scared silly." Shi Shang changed his position and held the door with a satisfied expression. However, the next second, his expression changed. "Who pushed I just now?" The team continued to remain silent. Shi Shang's gaze circled the team and landed on the celebrity who was standing slightly behind them. The corners of his mouth curved into a sinister smile. "Do you think that I won't know it was you just because you're hiding from me?" The celebrity's head shrank back. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Shi Shang walked out of the room and closed the door behind her. The door locked with a click. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. It was locked. It was locked. It was King locked again. Someone rushed over to open the door, but it did not budge. It was no different from before. Shi Shang twisted his neck and walked step by step towards the celebrity who was hiding behind them. "You. What are you trying to do? Don't come over." The celebrity trembled as she retreated. She had felt great when she pushed Shi Shang earlier, but now she was terrified. How did she survive such a strong sandstorm? How could she walk in front of them and open the door? "Don't come over. Stop her." The celebrity's delicate face was filled with panic. She pulled at the person beside her and tried to block Shi Shang. However, Shi Shang was already in front of her. He easily grabbed her arm and pulled her to an open space. "You were trying to kill me just now, weren't you?" The celebrity was probably scared silly. She did not react for a moment and was pulled around by Shi Shang. "Great Immortal, please calm down." Jian Yi finally came back to her senses and came over to mediate the situation. "Can we talk about this inside?" "Go in. I'm not stopping you." Shi Shang rolled his eyes. Jian Yi was speechless. If she could go in, would she need to call you? The door could not be opened at all. When Shi Shang opened it just now, she had seen the thickness of the door. It was completely set up to be a vault. Unless they found explosives, they would not be able to open this door. Even explosives might not be able to open it. "Let go of me, Yu Huan, you be *th. Let go of me." The celebrity struggled violently. "I'm warning you. If you dare to touch a single hair on my body, Brother Jean will not let you go. Brother Jean, save me, save me. Even Brother Diamond won't be able to save you today, let alone Brother Jean." Shang grabbed the celebrity and pulled her towards the door. Yu Huan, let go of me. What are you trying to do? Ah. The celebrity saw that she was getting closer and closer to the outside, and the scary tornado seemed to be right in front of her. Brother Jean, save me. The celebrity turned her head to look at the crowd, but no one responded to her. Shang was very strong. He directly threw the celebrity out. With a sweep of the sandstorm, the celebrity disappeared without a trace. The crowd did not even hear a scream. Shang clapped his hands and turned to look at the others. If anyone dares to do anything behind my back next time, this will be the outcome. Everyone swallowed their saliva with difficulty. Was this guy even human? He threw a living person away just like that. Moreover, they did not even know why he threw her away. She called you Yu Huan? A man beside Jian Yi stood up. Does she know you? If anyone knew her, then she definitely could not be a god. She was lying. Jian Yi stopped the person who wanted to speak and lowered her voice to warn him, if you don't want anything to happen again, shut up. Captain Jian. The person did not understand. She was a liar. Why did she not want him to say anything? Jian Yi's meaning was very clear. Do not provoke Shang. They did not even know her background now. It was better not to act rashly. Sorry, it's even later today. Because the manuscript is on the computer and there is no internet, I can only update it when I get home. I'm so tired. I have to fly twice a day. I don't even know what I'm writing. My mind is blank. I have to hurry up and finish this so that I can go back to Galaxy. P.S. I've arrived home safely. Good night. By the way, can I ask for your ticket? Chapter 1861. They couldn't open the door no matter how hard they tried. In the end, someone looked at Shang. He had come out from the building before, so he definitely knew how to open the door. Hurry up and open the door, the person next to him urged anxiously. It's none of my business. Shang leaned against the wall and looked at them indifferently. What do you mean it's none of your business? Aren't you going in? I'm not going in. I'm not going to die anyway. Shang had an evil smile on his face. It made people want to beat him up. You. How could this person be like this? However, when she thought about how she had thrown a person out just like that, it seemed like there was nothing she wouldn't do. Jian Yi kept looking outside, and her expression became more and more serious. She walked to Shang's side and asked, "What do you want to open the door for us?" Shang restrained his evil smile and said seriously, "I'm a person of principle. If I say I won't open it, I won't open it." Jian Yi was speechless. He was even more annoying than before. Rumble. Something outside was being swept away by the tornado. At that moment, the entire ground was shaking. They could see that the tornado was not far away from them. The wind whistled past, and the dust on the ground flew up into the sky. Ah! Run! In the face of danger, most people would not listen to orders. Jian Yi kept telling them, but not many people were willing to listen. Everyone scattered and hid in a place that they thought was safe. In the end, Jian Yi had no choice but to lead her people to a place to hide. As the tornado passed through, the entire building was torn apart. Countless cement and steel bars were swept in. The model of the building was still visible at first, but in the blink of an eye, more than half of it had disappeared. The tornado lasted for half an hour. Shang patted the dust off his body and stepped on the bare ground to walk to a higher place. Standing at a high place, he could clearly see the scene below. People appeared one after another, and Jian Yi also appeared with her people. Everyone was relieved that they had survived a disaster. Jian Yi finished counting the number of people as quickly as possible. Everyone, leave this place first. You just have to work hard and find a place to rest. Jian Yi encouraged the people who were paralyzed on the ground. Captain Jian, I can't take it anymore. My legs are weak. I can't take it anymore. My heart is about to stop. No one was willing to leave. What had happened just now was too terrifying. They had almost been swept away by the tornado. At this moment, their entire bodies were clamoring for fear. As the leader, Jian-yi had to stand up and calm the people down at this time. After a passionate speech, these people were finally willing to leave with Jian-yi. They packed up their belongings and followed Jian-yi to find a shelter. At first, no one noticed that Shi Shang was following them. But when they did, they were furious. "Why is she still following us?" A skinny, dark-skinned man pointed at the Shi Shang, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. She could have saved so many people just now, but she did nothing and watched so many people get swept away by the tornado. How can such a person stay in the team? Chase her out. Staying in the same team as someone like her will make us unsafe. Captain Jen. Among these people, the ones who reacted the most strongly were those from the original owner's team. They felt guilty and wanted to drive Shi Shang away. Jian-yi frowned. She didn't want this psychopath to stay in the team, but they could only go to the place where they got water as long as she was there. Therefore, it was impossible for her to chase Shi Shang away. "How dare you stay here?" Someone said that it wasn't enough and even tried to make a move. However, before he could touch Shi Shang, he was thrown to the ground by the Shi Shang. "What does it have to do with you where I am? Are you the ones who are responsible for this road? Didn't you say that you are a god? Why did you leave us in the lurch?" Someone behind Jian-yi shouted angrily. Shi Shang shook off the person's hand and said seriously, "Haven't you heard that gods don't interfere with the affairs of the mortal world? Of course I have to follow the rules. Otherwise, I will be struck by lightning." Everyone was speechless. What could they say? Could they beat her to death? How infuriating! This group of people couldn't win against Shi Shang, so naturally, they couldn't beat him either. In the end, they could only grit their teeth and watch him follow behind them. They found a new place to rest. This place wasn't attacked by the tornado, so the buildings were still intact. There were fewer people, but there were also fewer supplies. At this time, everyone felt desperate. Without food, they would die sooner or later. After a night of discussion, Jian-yi decided to take everyone away from here and go to the water source. Without food, at least there was a water source. They could last for a while. The only thing that made people sad was that the water source wasn't in their hands. It was controlled by the psychopath who claimed to be a god. They found a station near the water source and sent people to fetch water every day. The rest of the people went out to look for food. There was actually a lot of food in this city, but a lot of it was buried in the sand, so it was very difficult to get it. Jian-yi divided the people into two groups. One group went out every day and brought back a lot of food. They could barely survive. Within a year's time, the team had grown quite a bit. Most of the people were found by Jian-yi's people, but there were also small groups that came to seek refuge. What is that place? The people who just arrived at the station would point at a patch of green not far away and ask, "That is the water source. Don't go near it when you are not fetching water," the people in the station warned them. Water source. Water source was a very important resource at this time, but these people only warned them not to go near it. There was no one guarding it. Weren't they afraid that someone would snatch the water source? The people in the station knew what these people were thinking. There are people living there. If you want to live, don't go around. In the past year, they had been tortured by the Shi Shang to the point that they almost lost their temper. Although she lived by the water, she didn't stop them from fetching water. If they didn't provoke her, she could occasionally talk to them about life and dreams. However, they were afraid that someone would provoke her recklessly. That would be worse than a volcanic eruption. Often, the newcomers wouldn't listen to them. At first, they would stop them, but later on, they realized that these people were like that. The more they tried to stop them, the more curious they would be. In the end, they just let them be. This time, some of the newcomers weren't honest. They sneaked to the water source at night. There were plants planted there, so it was a completely different scenery from the desert. As soon as they got close, they could feel the moisture and coolness. It was very comfortable. Half an hour later, the people who sneaked over were thrown at the entrance of the station half dead. The people on night watch didn't even ask why they were there. They dragged them in and settled them down. They warned these people not to go near the water source. There was a psychopath who claimed to be a god living there. Asterisk, this is a fake group. Little fairy, I have finally returned to the embrace of my great China. Let me happily ask for a vote. Cherub, you are asking for a vote as soon as you come back. Aren't you embarrassed? Little fairy, what is there to be embarrassed about? Anyway, I have been shameless for many years. Cherub. He was speechless. Chapter 1862. Shi Shang had built a small house next to the water source for her to live in. She didn't know why she was living here, but the system insisted that she had to stay here to see Feng Ci. Thus, she had no choice but to stay here. She was so bored that her hair was standing on end. In the beginning, there were still people who came to find trouble with her to pass the time. Later on, these pastimes were all gone. It was so boring. She was so bored that her hair was standing on end. Shi Shang sat up on the bed and looked at the lush green plants outside. There were ripples on the surface of the lake next to the plants. Shi Shang narrowed his eyes and left the house. The water source was at a lower location, and Jian Yi's house was at a higher location. After a year of construction, it was already starting to look like an ancient village. Shi Shang went up the water source. When the guards saw her, they all looked constipated. They had no choice but to go up and ask, "Miss you, is there anything I can help you with?" Shi Shang looked like a charlatan. I looked at the sky and calculated that you guys are in trouble. The gatekeeper was a little speechless. Sometimes she seemed to be lying, but sometimes she seemed to have some ability. It was hard to tell the truth from the lies. "Miss you, this matter has nothing to do with you." "Yes, that's why I'm here to watch the show." Shi Shang nodded. The guards were speechless again. Someone, drag this psychopath out and shoot her for 10 minutes. They didn't dare to stop Shi Shang. They just watched as Shi Shang went up. Shi Shang went around a few short corridors and walked to a place that looked like a lobby. It was full of people, but they were clearly separated. Jian Yi looked at the people opposite her coldly. There were a few big men opposite her. They were all muscular and had strange tattoos on their bodies. Some of the tattoos were covered in dust and couldn't be seen. However, this group of people didn't look like good people. Shi Shang came in from outside, and the big men immediately looked over. The big man sitting opposite Jian Yi immediately smiled wretchedly. "Isn't there such a pretty girl here? Captain Jian, you're not being kind by saying that there isn't." Shi Shang cast a sidelong glance at him before finding a seat and sitting down. Jian Yi had a strange expression on her face. "She's not mine." The burly man snorted coldly. "Why would someone who isn't yours appear here?" "Captain Jian, do you think we're easy to fool?" Jian Yi was speechless. She wasn't one of her people in the first place. Shi Shang took out some melon seeds and started munching on them. The sound of crunching was very clear, and the whole hall was filled with the sound of him cracking melon seeds. Everyone couldn't help but look over. The big men looked at each other and made the final decision. "We'll take this woman. No matter what, Captain Jian, we won't take her for free. We'll exchange her with manpower and supplies." Jian Yi was speechless. If she could make the decision, she would have given the psychopath to them without hesitation. Unfortunately, she couldn't make the decision. Shi Shang finally understood what was going on as he listened to the men's conversation. There were no women in their team, and many of them did not have a happy life. However, there were many women in Jian Yi's team. Although they were not outstanding beauties, they would be very happy as long as they were women. Therefore, the men came up with the idea of using manpower to exchange for women. This group of men was quite strong, and they had guns and cars in their hands. Jian Yi didn't dare to fight them head-on. That was why the show was happening now. If Jian Yi wasn't the captain, this group of people would probably want her to be exchanged with them. "Captain Jian, have you thought about it?" The big man was a little impatient. "I'm sorry, I can't make the decision on this matter. Jian-yi was very vigilant when she spoke, afraid that this group of people would suddenly make things difficult for her. You're the captain. Why can't you make the decision? The big man was angry and threatened her. Are you unwilling? Captain Jian, don't lose the big picture for the small. The corner of Jian-yi's mouth twitched. Look at the person who was eating melon seeds and watching the show for a long time without making a sound. Did he show any fear or other emotions from the beginning to the end? Did such a person look like he could be so easily dominated by others? Captain Jian, you know how many people we have. If you don't let us take her away, don't blame us for being rude. I heard that you have a water source here. The last sentence was meaningful, and Jian-yi's back immediately tensed up. What do you mean? The big man laughed twice. In this world, everyone has such a difficult life. When there are difficulties, we have to help each other, right? It must be hard for a woman like you to support such a big team. Why don't you join us? We'll let you continue to manage this team. What do you think? Jian-yi stood up immediately. This is your purpose, right? Water was the most scarce thing now. If anyone had a water source, it would be no problem for them to dominate the area. She was a little strange that these people came up for a woman, but now that they said this, everything was clear. Their ultimate goal was still a water source. Captain Jian, you're a smart person. We won't beat around the bush. We only want the person once, and you let us take the water once a week. Isn't it useless for you to have so many water sources? The big man's idea was very good. Jian-yi clenched her hands tightly. Do you think you'll win if we really fight? Ha ha ha, I don't dare to say that we'll win, but you'll definitely suffer heavy losses. The big man patted his bulging waist. They had guns and enough bullets. Before they came, they had already asked around. Jian-yi and the others had guns, but they didn't have enough ammunition. There was nothing to be afraid of. Jian-yi felt uncertain. She knew the situation of her weapons the best. Captain Jian, if they want the water source and Yu Huan, let them go. The people next to Jian-yi leaned over and whispered softly. This lunatic wasn't someone that anyone could take. Moreover, the water source. If they dared to go, they would probably only be beaten up. These two things weren't something that they could decide. If that was the case, why were they stopping them? Did the person who was watching the show look grateful at all? Jian-yi glanced at Shi Sheng. He was probably angered by her indifferent attitude of eating melon seeds. She said in a deep voice, "If you want the water source, go and talk to her." The big men exchanged glances. They thought that Jian-yi had agreed to their request, but she couldn't say it out loud. That was why she found such an excuse. He. The big man rubbed his hands and walked in front of Shi Sheng. His wretched eyes kept circling around Shi Sheng's body. Little beauty, your captain gave you to us. Go back with us obediently. We promise you that you'll eat well. How about that? Eat well and drink well. Shi Sheng raised his eyebrows slightly. Find me something spicy first. The big man was speechless. Most of the preserved food nowadays were canned food or compressed biscuits, which had a long shelf life. How could there be anything spicy? It was just a metaphor, but she was still arguing. If there's nothing spicy, you can give me a Manchu Han imperial feast. Shi Sheng shook his legs without caring about his image. The big man was speechless. They had never seen something like a Manchu Han imperial feast before this world became like this, let alone now. Chapter 1863. You don't have anything and you still want to provide for me? Shi Sheng threw away the melon seed shell in his hand. Are you dreaming? Provide. Who the hell said we're going to provide for you? Do you think you're Buddha? One of the burly men shouted in a hoarse voice. Big brother, don't talk nonsense with her. Take her back. Take me back? Shi Sheng looked at him with a half-smile. Do you think I'm cheap and can be taken away so easily? Shi Sheng stood up while pinching his fingers. He hadn't fought much recently and his hands were itchy. Jian Yi's people consciously leaned back. This woman was very scary when she fought. She couldn't differentiate between friend and foe. Perhaps in her eyes, they were no different from others. The burly men didn't know what was going on. When they saw Sher Shang walking towards them, they didn't know why, but the temperature in the air seemed to have dropped a lot. A cold wind swept past their backs and a chill ran down their spines. Ah! Screams rang out in the hot air. A few black shadows fell from the sky in a parabola, smashing into the sand and rolling down the sand dune. A pair of sneakers stepped on the person who was rolling at the front, and he immediately stopped rolling. The person who was rolling down from behind was blocked. The force of the impact was not small, but the owner of the sports shoes didn't have any intention of moving at all. He was as steady as a rock. It was a man. His slightly long hair covered his eyes and half of his face was exposed. The corners of his lips were tightly pursed, and he had a gloomy temperament. The man bent down and met the gaze of one of the burly men. He asked in a hoarse voice, "Where's the water source?" The burly man's mind was blank. Suddenly, he heard someone speak. His unfocused gaze fixed on the man's face and his pupils constricted. "It's you." They had met this man once before. At that time, they thought that he was easy to bully. Who knew that he was a ruthless character? Who would have thought that they would meet him here? The man's expression didn't change at all. His eyes were filled with extreme impatience. "Where's the water source?" I don't know." The burly man's teeth chattered. They really didn't know. They only heard that there was a water source here, but they didn't know where it was exactly. The man's impatience reached its peak. He exerted force on his feet, and a sharp blade appeared from the side of his shoe. He mercilessly stabbed the burly man in the chest. The men behind him were dealt with in the same way. The man pulled his foot back. There was no blood on his shoes. He stepped on the sand and walked forward, leaving a trail of footprints that stretched into the distance. When Sher Shang returned to the water source, it was already night time. The bright moon shone on the rippling surface of the lake. Whoosh! Sher Shang stopped in his tracks and looked through the plants at the lakeside. Not far away, there was a dark figure squatting by the lakeside. Ripples were spreading out from the lakeside. Someone could enter the lakeside without her permission. Sher Shang was still thinking when the figure on the other side suddenly stood up and turned around to look at her. The moonlight fell into his eyes and they flashed with silver light. If it wasn't for the moonlight, his eyes were silver. F***CK, I seem to have encountered something strange. The figure suddenly flashed, and the green plants rustled. A gust of hot wind hit Sher Shang's face. The black figure who had been standing by the lake was now in front of her. He stared at her with his silver eyes. If you looked closely, you would notice that there was a flowing silver light in his pupils as if some kind of living creature was swimming in them. It was eerie and terrifying. "Are you the Apocalypse One?" A hoarse voice came from the darkness. What Apocalypse One? What does this have to do with I? Did something terrible happen again without her knowledge? Who is this guy? Countless questions popped up in Sher Shang's mind. However, the man did not intend to explain. He raised his hand to touch Sher Shang's head. Sher Shang immediately stepped back and took out his iron sword to point at him. This guy was not Feng Ci, yet he could pass through her defenses without any obstruction. He could only be the male lead. The man's hand awkwardly stopped in mid-air. He froze for a moment before putting it down. "I'm Shia. I'm here to look for you." "Look for me? Why are you looking for me?" "To save the world." "Shia, I'm Shia." Shia was silent for a moment. "I guess so." Sher Shang was speechless. Why does everyone in this world want I to save the world? I refuse. Don't look for me to save the world. I'm not interested. Sher Shang decisively refused. You're the Apocalypse One. This is your duty. Shia's tone was emotionless as if he was just calmly stating a fact. But Sher Shang kept feeling that something was off. There was a strange sense of disharmony. Who said this is my duty? Shi Shang stepped back to a safe distance and sneered. What's this Apocalypse One? Do I have to be just because you say so? Have you asked for my opinion? The silver light in Shia's eyes flickered strangely. He lowered his head slightly. The Apocalypse One is destined by the heavens. There's no choice. As for what the Apocalypse One is, you'll find out in the future. No, no, no. I don't want to know. Shi Shang waved his hand. I'll leave saving the world to you. I'm fine with destroying the world. I refuse to join a society like saving the world. I'm not the Apocalypse One. Shi Shang's mouth twitched. Then, how do you know I'm the Apocalypse One? Did he randomly point it out? Isn't this the female lead's setting? What does it have to do with me? Shia raised his hand and placed his finger on his eyelid. He closed one eye, leaving only the other one glowing with silver light. I can see the Apocalypse One. Shi Shang touched his face strangely. Do I have a pair of horns or a tail? Shia moved his finger up and opened his eyes. The silver light in his eyes was dazzling. The Apocalypse One's body has a unique halo. I can see it. Oh. So he didn't have horns. Shi Shang sheathed his sword and turned to leave. Apocalypse One. Saving the world. It has nothing to do with me. Shia frowned and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes had returned to their original black color. He watched as Shi Shang disappeared behind the green plants. Shi Shang had already forgotten about the Apocalypse One. However, when he opened the door the next day, he saw Shia standing at the door. It was too dark last night, so Shi Shang didn't see his face clearly. Now that he was standing at the door, he saw him clearly. He was considered a handsome guy, but he was a little gloomy and gave off an uncomfortable vibe. Shia handed a relatively clean cup to Shi Shang. Have some water. Shi Shang grabbed the doorframe, leaving only a small gap. What are you trying to do? Let me tell you, don't even think about saving the world. You can go look for that woman. Maybe she can help you. I definitely won't help you. Shia sounded certain. The person I'm looking for is you. I took a day off yesterday. I'll be back tomorrow. It's the end of the month. I'm begging for a monthly vote. Those with a cap can join the welfare group and exchange for a monthly vote with Shimi PS. Flipping cards in the book review section has resumed. If you comment 3 times on Society's Brother Shang consecutively, you'll have a chance to flip your cards. Please see the pinned post for details. There won't be many people flipping cards every day, so don't worry. As long as the name is good and you keep commenting, it will flip. Chapter 1864. What was wrong with Shia? Shi Shang had clearly rejected him, yet he could still stay here as if nothing had happened. Shi Shang squatted in front of the door, munching on melon seeds as he looked at the man not far away. He sighed in his heart. To be the main character, one had to be thick-skinned. He must be too thin-skinned to be cannon fodder. Is your skin thicker than the city walls? How could you be thin-skinned? How shameless could the host be? Fine, the host had always been shameless. Here you go. Shia handed the can to Shi Shang. Shi Shang continued munching on melon seeds. I'm not eating. He was afraid it might be poisonous. It's not poisoned. Then I'm still not eating. Bro, get lost. Don't show up in front of me. I'm going to lose control and beat the male lead up. Shia did not force Shi Shang. He sat aside and opened the can to eat by himself. Shi Shang was speechless. Shi Shang got up and stayed away from this psychopath. For the rest of the time, Shia stayed nearby and prepared all 3 meals for Shi Shang on time. Shi Shang felt a chill run down his spine. What was the male lead trying to do? Could it be that he wants to please me first, and then dismember me when I let my guard down? He was afraid. There were always idiots trying to harm him. Shi Shang held his chin and thought about how to kill the male lead so that he could have some peace. Miss you. Jian Yi's voice suddenly interrupted Shi Shang's thoughts. Shang turned to look for Xiaye. The female lead was here. Could the two of them cultivate their relationship? However, Shang only saw Xiaye's back. He was gone. 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 His heart was so tired. Your official title is here. Why are you leaving? Come back, male lead. Miss you. Jian Yi did not see Xiaye. She walked straight to Shang. We need some water. Can you let us get some? Shang said weakly, didn't we just get some water yesterday? Jian Yi was a little embarrassed, but she still forced herself to explain, something happened this morning. We ran out of water, so... According to the agreement, she would fetch water once every 3 days, and the amount each time was sufficient. However, this time was indeed an accident. Otherwise, she would not have come in person. This lunatic was sometimes easy to talk to, and sometimes difficult to talk to. No one knew what kind of temper she had. Then stay thirsty. You won't die if you don't drink water for a day or two. Shang patted his skirt and stood up. He said mysteriously, I'm a great immortal with principles. I can't break the rules for you. Could she scold him? Jian Yi took a deep breath and tried her best to force a smile. Miss you, we have injured people up there. We can't do without water. Can you let me take less water? No, Shang said coldly. I told you that I'm a man of principles. Jian Yi looked at the lake not far away. Her face was full of frustration. There was so much water, and she could only look at it. She could not even take it. Jian Yi tried her best to persuade him, but Shang refused. She had already agreed to let them fetch water once every 3 days, and there was no limit to the amount of water they could fetch each time. How could they blame her for running out of water? In the end, Jian Yi could only leave with her people unwillingly. They wanted to fight with her, but the result was that they would not be able to win. It would also waste their energy, so they could only suppress this impulse. Shang waited for Jian Yi and the others to leave. Xiaye did not appear for a long time, but she did not care. She went straight to her room to sleep. In the middle of the night, Shang smelled the aroma of meat. It was not the aroma of canned meat, but the smell of fresh barbecued meat. Shang rubbed his messy hair and sat up. He looked at the empty space in a daze for a moment, then got out of bed and walked to the side of the bed. The closer he got to the window, the stronger the aroma. The window was half open, and with the moonlight outside, he could clearly see the scene outside. Xiaye was barbecuing something, and the aroma of the meat was coming from where he was. Perhaps sensing Shang's gaze, Xiaye turned to look at him. In the next second, he was already standing outside the window. He handed the fragrant barbecued meat to Shang. I caught it this afternoon. It's fresh. Although the world had become like this, there were still some edible animals. It was just that they were very difficult to catch, and the taste of their meat was not as good as it used to be. Shang quietly closed the window, blocking Xiaye outside. Then, he took out a fruit and began to eat it. Was she the kind of person who would bend over for a piece of meat? No. Didn't I know to catch it myself? Shang dragged the iron sword out. Xiaye was still standing outside, looking at Shang through a cluster of green plants that were half the height of a person. Shang silently rolled his eyes and walked into the desert with the iron sword. She did not believe that the male lead would be so kind. He must have a purpose. She would pack him up and throw him out when he was full. The temperature difference between day and night in the desert was huge. Right now, the temperature was probably below 0. With the night wind blowing, it was even colder. Shang took out a cloak and wrapped it around himself. Looking for living things in the desert was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Shang directly asked the iron sword to search for them. The iron sword was very unhappy. It was such a noble and elegant sword. Why did it end up being used like this? Its heart refused to accept it. However, its body was honest. When the iron sword went to look for food, Shang sat on a rock and looked at the sky. The sky in this world was very strange. He could only see the moon, but not the stars. Most importantly, the moon did not seem to have changed. And that lake, it was very strange. The iron sword's ability was not for show. Very quickly, it returned with a string of things. Sher Shang suspected that as long as it was alive, it would be able to string it back. The iron sword was very proud of itself. It even spun in circles in the air, asking for praise. Sher Shang, how the hell was he going to eat centipedes and scorpions? People would die, okay? Sher Shang threw away all the poisonous things and returned with the edible things. Before returning to the lake, he heard screams coming from the other side of the lake. Sher Shang raised his eyebrows slightly and quickened his pace. There were several people standing at the place where the water was fetched. One of them was being supported. They looked at the center of the lake in horror. The center of the lake was bubbling like boiling water. Ripples were spreading out from the center of the lake, and the entire lake seemed to be tumbling. Sher Shang. It was over. There was a stone in the center of the lake. It was the stone she had stopped at when she came here. She had gotten rid of the vines earlier. When she turned around, she found that the stone had moved to the center of the lake and was slowly sinking. However, it did not move after that. She had tried to get rid of it, but the stone would run away. Every time she attacked it, it would move back to the center of the lake. That stone might have become a spirit. She usually tried her best not to get close to the center of the lake. Who knew what the hell the stone was? These people were all Jian Yi's people. She had refused Jian Yi's request to fetch water during the day. These people might have come to steal water, but for some reason, they provoked the stone in the center. I beg for monthly votes at the end of the month. Chapter 1865. At first, the water in the middle of the lake was rolling. Then, the entire surface of the lake was rolling. The few troublemakers had already run back to call Jian Yi. Sher Shang found a place to sit down and started a fire to barbecue the meat. Jian Yi quickly came down with her people. She immediately saw Sher Shang barbecuing the meat calmly. The corner of her mouth twitched and she quickly ran to the lake. What's going on? I don't know. We were sent flying as soon as we got close. After that, the surface of the lake began to roll, and then it became like this. The troublemakers couldn't explain what was going on either. Jian Yi looked for a while and rushed back to the great immortal who was barbecuing the meat. Miss Yu, do you know what happened? I don't know. Sher Shang calmly turned the barbecued meat over. I warned you not to go near the lake. Jian Yi's gaze was involuntarily attracted to the barbecued meat. What kind of meat was this? Why was it so fragrant? Jian Yi pulled her attention back from the barbecued meat. Miss Yu, do you know something? Sher Shang looked up at her and grinned. I won't tell you even if I know. Jian Yi was so angry that she almost had a heart attack. She knew Sher Shang's character very well. If he didn't want to tell her, he would definitely tell her. Therefore, she had no choice but to return to the lake. The biggest threat to them from the desert was food and water. If something happened to the lake, they really didn't know if they could hold on. A group of people surrounded the lake nervously. However, other than the rolling of the lake, there was no other movement. After 2 hours, the surface of the lake returned to normal. The bright moon was reflected on the surface of the lake, and it was so calm that it was as if nothing had happened. Everyone was speechless. Everything was fine. What happened just now? Is there something in the water? We drink the water here every day. Is there a problem? Jian Yi's back was covered in cold sweat. At this time, the surface of the lake was calm, but her heart was in turmoil. She couldn't calm down. At this time, there were so many people asking her questions. How could she say anything? Jian Yi felt even more frustrated when she looked at the person who had already started eating. After such a big thing happened, she still had the mood to barbecued meat. Where did the meat come from? That wasn't the main point. No one knew what was going on with the lake. Jian Yi couldn't get anything out of Sher Shang, so she had no choice but to send someone back first. At least there was nothing wrong with the lake for now. Perhaps it was just a natural phenomenon. Before Jian Yi left, she glanced meaningfully at the barbecued meat in Shishang's hand. After everyone had left, Shishaya appeared out of nowhere. He stood 3 meters away from the Shishang and looked at the lake without saying a word. No one knew what he was thinking. Shishang calmly finished the barbecued meat, stood up, and took out his sword. No, his sack. Before Xiaye could react, she was put into the sack by Shishang. Shishang tossed Xiaye very far away. The male lead was hovering in front of her. She had a feeling that something was going to happen. For the sake of her own peace of mind, it was better to ask the male lead to leave. Have you considered the feelings of the male lead before doing this? Shishang snorted. I'm such a selfish person. I only need to consider my own feelings. It was someone else's business whether they felt comfortable or not. She only needed to make herself comfortable. What's there to be proud of? Master, I'm going to break down. For the next few days, the lake seemed to be convulsing. Every day, it would roll at a fixed time. Jian Yi's people didn't dare to drink water because they were afraid that there was something wrong with the water. Jian Yi didn't understand what was going on either. However, she couldn't stop drinking water. She could only let her people try and make sure that there was nothing wrong with the water before letting them drink it. Captain Jian, what's going on? Jian Yi shook her head with a gloomy expression. I don't know either. The lake rolled every day for the same amount of time. She had no idea what was going on. Does that Yu Huan know? Underling pointed at Shishang, who was eating melon seeds. She sat there all day. She didn't even frown, let alone worry. What could a lunatic like her know? Do you really believe that she's a great deity? Underling sneered, obviously disdainful. You can't say that. There are many things that have happened in the past year that can't be explained. Maybe she's really a great deity? Underling defended Shishang. Then she's also an evil great deity. She just wants to see us die. Underling gritted his teeth. Underling A was speechless. Although some things had happened that couldn't be explained with common sense, she was indeed watching the show the whole time. Stop arguing, Jenny said. I'm going to go into the water to take a look. What? The underling said at the same time and looked at Jian Yi in disbelief. Captain Jian, we can't do that. We don't know what's in the water. It's dangerous to go into the water rashly, Underling A immediately advised. Yeah, Captain Jian, we can't go into the water. The underlings behind agreed. If we don't go down and take a look, we'll never know what's in there. We'll always be in fear, Jian Yi said rationally. Don't worry, I know what to do. I'll come up immediately if there's any danger. No, Captain Jian, you're the captain. If something happens to you, what will happen to the team? I'll go. Underling B patted his chest and recommended himself. Yes, we'll go. Captain Jian, you can't go down. The underlings unanimously disagreed with Jian Yi going into the water. In the end, they decided that 2 underlings who were good at swimming would go into the water to take a look. Of course, this was only the first step. The most important step was to get Shishang to let them in. Every time Jian Yi talked to Shishang, she felt very nervous. She didn't understand where this feeling came from. She tried her best to suppress this feeling, but it was useless. As long as he saw her, the feeling of nervousness would emerge. It couldn't be stopped. Jian Yi took a deep breath and maintained a smile. Miss Yu, we want to go into the water to take a look. Can you let them in? Shishang glanced at them. Are you going to die? Jian Yi was speechless. How could he say that? It was intolerable that such people weren't beaten to death. The underlings behind were about to explode, but Jian Yi quickly stopped them. Can you? The more you argued with her, the more unpleasant her words would be. If you went straight to the point, she would give you an accurate answer. Sure. Shishang stood up and shook her black dress. He grinned and revealed his white teeth. If you want to die, I'll send you on your way. You don't have to thank me. Everyone was speechless. They really wanted to strangle her. Shi Shang walked towards the lake and let the two people in. He looked at them with a faint smile. Jian Yi didn't have time to care about Shi Shang's gloating. She looked at the two people in the water nervously. Be careful. If there's any danger, come up immediately. Yes, Captain Jian. Their figures quickly disappeared into the lake. After a few bubbles appeared on the surface of the lake, it became calm again. The people in the water couldn't see anything. Jian Yi paced back and forth. Her eyebrows were full of worry. She wished that she was the one in the water. Chapter 1866. After the two of them went down, there was no movement for a long time. Jian Yi waited anxiously. After a few minutes, she couldn't wait any longer and decided to go down herself. Since the female lead wanted to take the risk, Shi Shang didn't stop her and let her in. After Jian Yi went down, Xia appeared out of nowhere and stood beside Shi Shang silently. Shi Shang was speechless. Didn't I throw him away? Why was he here now? Xia didn't intend to settle the score with Shi Shang. He stared gloomily at the lake and tilted his head slightly. From the corner of his eye, he met Shi Shang's gaze. Do you want to go out? Wait a long time. The plot seemed to be developing a little strangely. Let me calm down. Go out. Go out where? This plot was a little weird. What do you mean? Even if he didn't know what was going on, he had to calm down. Xia leaned closer to Shi Shang and said in a hoarse voice, Don't you think this world is very strange? The night that never changes, and this strange lake. Shi Shang narrowed his eyes. So, the place we're in is just a simulated world. Xia spoke a little slowly. He was probably observing Shi Shang's reaction. When he saw that Shi Shang's expression didn't change much, he continued, The background of this world is real. The real world outside is the same, but it's not as bad as it is now. Does that mean the world we're in now isn't real? A game world within a game? This setting was too heaven-defying. You can say that. Xia nodded. Shi Shang's eyes turned. What's the purpose? To find the source, Xia said. The background was real. The outside world had turned into a desert because of the disaster, but it was far more dangerous than this world. In order to survive, humans had to live underground. The time outside was called the Desert Era from the beginning of the desert. It was now the 319th year of the Desert Era. People had built an underground kingdom underground, and technology had developed rapidly in the past 100 years. Humans had been looking for the source of the planet's current state, but the results were not good. Later, someone proposed to restore the original disaster and explore it with a virtual environment. Perhaps they could find the source and the solution. Thus, this world was created. They were now in their third experiment, and the first two had failed. They only succeeded on the third try. In order to ensure that no one would be misled by the known information, everyone's memories were sealed. Everything was carried out from the beginning of the disaster. Shi Shang rubbed his chin. This was similar to the game she played. So, what do you mean by Heaven's Bearer? To ensure the safety of these people, the Apocalypse set up a secure data connection point. You can leave through it. Xia Yi added, Don't worry, you're a human. It's just that you have the highest compatibility with the system, so you're set as the safe data connection point. The people inside would gradually recover their memories. After recovering their memories, they would be able to leave on their own. In order to prevent any unexpected situations, they had set up a safe data connection point. If someone couldn't recover their memories, the people outside could contact her and ask her to help get them out. They called this safe zone the Apocalypse. You're not one of these people? Shi Shang narrowed his eyes. The male lead kept saying, they, but he didn't count himself in. No, Xia Yi admitted. I came in by mistake. Because I didn't back up my information in their system, I couldn't leave. Later, I heard that there was an apocalypse here, so I've been looking for you. Was this why the system insisted that she follow the female lead? Because the female lead was there, the system would be able to discover that something was wrong in the shortest amount of time. And Feng Ci, was most likely outside. Are you sure you only need me to leave? Shi Shang raised his brows and looked at Xia Yi. Usually, this kind of setting would be for the female lead. Unless this apocalypse was a sacrifice. It was impossible for the female lead to die, but there were some important plots that required someone to die, so at this time, the cannon fodder could also be given a very important item. Would I get shot? Shia's lips quivered, causing Shi Shang's heart to turn cold. I knew there was a trap for this heaven's bearer to appear on me. The male lead was a trap too. He actually wanted to trick her. Who knows, he might even want to kill her. Scary. The scheming male lead was too scary. This lake is the supporting point of the entire world. Now that it's like this, there must be a problem. We have to get out as soon as possible, said Xia Yi. Shi Shang crossed his arms in front of his chest and refused. This might take Ai's life. I refuse. Xia Yi frowned, then relaxed. That's just your guess. Don't talk nonsense. Didn't you guess the same thing? Shi Shang exposed Xia Yi without hesitation. You're just waiting for me to jump into a trap. Do you think I'm stupid? Xia Yi choked. She was rendered speechless by Shi Shang's words. Then, do you have a better idea? Xia Yi knew that the girl in front of her was not stupid. On the contrary, she was very opinionated and capable. It was better to ally with her than to lie to her. What's there to be afraid of? I'm not the only one trapped here. With so many people accompanying me, it's not a loss. Shi Shang looked indifferent. Xia Yi was speechless. He should take back what he said from before. Xia Yi glanced at the lake. There was a hint of worry in her eyes. Do you know what you'll face if something goes wrong in this world? This experiment had not succeeded once. The safety factor was not high. If she wanted to return alive, she could only rely on herself. Shi Shang sneered. It's nothing but death. What else can it be? Oh God. Xia Yi was speechless. She did not want to talk anymore. If she could say that death was as normal as drinking water, there was really nothing else to say. Jian Yi had already come up from the lake. She was dragging a person who was either dead or alive. When Jian Yi came out, the others surrounded her and asked her about the situation underwater. There was nothing underwater, but one person was missing. She searched the entire bottom of the lake but could not find him. Shi Shang stood at the edge and looked at the lake thoughtfully. If this was a fictional world, then they were now players. It was like a holographic game. The person who disappeared must have gone offline. At night, the cold wind blew. The girl's face was cold as she stared at the lake calmly. She held the iron sword with one hand and spun it gently. The cold wind blew, and her dress fluttered. The moonlight traced the delicate lines on her dress, drawing a magnificent picture of mountains and rivers. She was like a king overlooking the world. She did not need to say a word to make people bow down to her. The girl's hand that was spinning the iron sword suddenly paused. She raised the iron sword, and a ripple appeared on the surface of the lake, extending into the distance. The cold wind swirled around the lake, and the entire surface of the lake began to shake. Please vote for me. It's the end of the month. Please vote for me when you see this. Chapter 1867. Rumble. The sound of an earthquake came from the direction of the lake. Xia Yi rushed to the lake immediately. There was a whirlpool in the middle of the lake, and the lake water was decreasing at a visible speed. The deafening sound came from the lake. There was no one by the lake. Xia Yi frowned. He looked at the whirlpool in the middle and the water that was almost half gone. He gritted his teeth and jumped in. Just as he jumped in, Jian Yi also rushed to the lake with her people. Shi Shang woke up on a transparent table. Her limbs were connected to strange colorful wires. As soon as she opened her eyes, a sharp alarm sounded in the room. Shi Shang covered her ears and got down from the table. As soon as her feet touched the ground, a group of people in white coats rushed in from outside. The connection was disconnected. Check your body. A few people pressed Shi Shang back onto the table and reconnected the wires to her body without any explanation. Shi Shang's body couldn't exert any strength, so she could only turn her head to look at the group of people in white coats busying themselves. Hashtag I feel like I've transcended time. Hashtag previously, there was yellow sand everywhere. Now, she was suddenly lying on a high-tech transparent table. After these people checked her body, they communicated with each other. Someone leaned over and comforted her. Don't worry. Your body is just a little exhausted. You'll be fine after some rest. Shi Shang did feel like she had overexerted herself and her head was dizzy. But she didn't dare to faint right now. Who knew if these people would take advantage of the time she was asleep to drag her away and dismember her? Most importantly, she was so damn hungry. Relax. Sleep. You'll be fine soon. Get me something to eat first. Perhaps it was because she hadn't spoken for a long time, but her voice was particularly hoarse and unpleasant. Shi Shang was shocked. No, you just woke up. You can't eat yet. The other party rejected her mercilessly and coaxed her as if she was a child. Rest first. You'll be able to eat after you rest. Then you can leave. She didn't dare to rest with them here. The other party was very easy to talk to this time. Rest well. We'll come and see you later. The group of people in white coats left. Shi Shang lay on the cold table and thought about life. The hole in my brain is a little big. I need some time to calm down. He was so hungry. Shi Shang took out a fruit and took 2 bites. The sour taste made her hungrier. She was so hungry that she couldn't sleep. Shi Shang got up from the table again. This time, he was smarter. He first broke the machine that was going to call the police, and then pulled out the strange wires on his body. She supported herself with the iron sword and staggered out of the room. Outside the room was a very sci-fi corridor. One could walk from either side. Shi Shang looked around and chose one at random. Shi Shang could see a door every few meters. Through the transparent observation window, Shi Shang could see what was inside. The room was exactly the same as the one she had been lying in. These people should be the ones who had entered the room. Someone's awake? Yes, but she doesn't seem to be in a good condition, so we didn't dare to ask too much. We'll ask her after she's rested. Shi Shang heard people talking in front of him. He hurriedly turned to another passage. The sound of footsteps came closer and closer, passing through the passageway, but the sound of their conversation did not disappear. Such a big thing happened this time, and you didn't even notice it. I really don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry. This time, it was our negligence that caused such a big mistake. Dr. Chen, why are the higher-ups so angry this time? That's not for you to ask. Show me the name list of the people who participated in this experiment. By the way, is there someone called Jian Yi on the list this time? Dr. Chen's tone was firm. The other person was obviously afraid of Dr. Chen. Yes, there's one. Is there a problem with her? Dr. Chen snorted coldly. You're on your own. Dr. Chen. She participated voluntarily. The voices became softer and softer, and Shi Shang could no longer hear them clearly. She leaned against the cold wall. The female lead, Jian Yi, had a background. TSK. I'm so hungry. Let's find something to eat first. Shi Shang kept walking along the passageway. Along the way, she met some people. She turned left and right, but she didn't know where she was. When she smelled the aroma of food in one of the passageways, she pushed the door open and went in. As soon as she entered, Shi Shang's attention was attracted by the food in the room. All kinds of snacks were placed on the table, and the aroma was coming from the food. Shi Shang didn't have many requirements for the food. As long as it tasted good and could fill her stomach, she was fine with it. She went forward and sniffed the snacks on the table. Then, she stretched out her claws. What are you doing? Before her claws touched the snacks, a man with chestnut-colored curly hair came out from behind a row of shelves. He was wearing an apron and was holding a spatula in his hand. At this moment, he was pointing at Shi Shang. Who let you in? Shi Shang looked at the man with slight confusion. She frowned slightly and retracted her claws. Do I need permission to come in? Of course. The man snorted coldly. This is my place. No one is allowed to come in without my permission. Get out. Shi Shang curled her index finger and placed it on her lips. She stared at the man. What are you looking at? The man was furious. He shook the spatula again and again. Which department are you from? I'm just hungry, Shi Shang said with an honest face. I wanted to come in and eat something. Hungry? The man was suspicious. He looked at her and said warily, You're from the testing area, right? Don't they provide food there? If you're hungry, you can eat there. What are you doing here? I'm lost. She was so hungry. The man blinked and slowly put down the spatula in his hand. Then eat. Hurry back when you're done. Otherwise, those people will sound the alarm again and search for you all over the floor. It's annoying. Shi Shang moved to the table and began to eat the snacks. The snacks had a strong milky aroma and melted in her mouth. They were delicious. The man glanced at her and turned back to the shelves. Shi Shang leaned back slightly and looked at the shelves. The man was taking something over there and seemed to be preparing a new snack. What are you looking at? The man was annoyed by Shi Shang's stare and glared back at her. Shi Shang threw the last bit of snack into her mouth. Nothing. Hurry up and leave when you're done eating. The man shooed Shi Shang away as if she were a fly. Go out, turn left and walk straight. Then turn right and you'll see the sign for the testing area. I want to ask, why are you so annoying? The man frowned. I was kind enough to let you eat. Why are you asking so many questions? Hurry up and leave, or I'll call for help. Shi Shang. What a temper. Shi Shang put down the plate in her hand and moved to the exit. The man kept staring at her, urging her to leave. Shi Shang hesitated for a second and opened the door. Chapter 1868. The corridor outside looked the same. Shi Shang had no idea where she was. She felt sleepy after eating and drinking. She walked along the corridor for a while, looking for a place to rest. There were a few rooms in the corridor ahead. Shi Shang walked over and stood in front of 2 rooms for a while. She chose the room on the left. Just as she put her hand on the doorknob, the door behind her opened with a click. Shi Shang couldn't turn around, but when she saw the person behind her, she took a step back and pressed herself against the wall. You. Shi Shang glanced at the corridor. How did you get here so quickly? Wasn't he in the room full of snacks just now? How did this person get in front of her so quickly? Could it be that she had taken a detour? This is a restricted area. The other party pointed at the sign on the wall. His face was cold and his voice was like ice. What are you doing here? Shi Shang. I don't know what I'm doing here. Who am I? Who is he? Judging from his tone, he obviously wasn't the angry boy from before. But he did look exactly like that boy. Other than his clothes and expression, his hair and face were completely the same. Twins? Deep breaths. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down, my foot. Dog eye, get out here right now. What's going on? Explain it to I. She felt strange just now. That person had Feng Xi's aura, but it was very faint, so faint that she almost couldn't sense it. The man in front of her had a stronger aura, but it was obviously different from before. It's exactly what the host thinks. The system quickly said, then went offline and pretended to be dead. It was afraid that the host would kill it if it went online. For the sake of its body's safety, it was better to silently dive. Shi Shang. It's exactly what she thinks. What is she thinking? Are you crazy? Damn it, did you just split him into 2 people? Is this even possible? This technology is too awesome. Why don't you go to heaven? I's wife will be fine, right? If anything happens to him, I'll kill you and that retarded master of yours. I'm not here, I can't hear anything, I can't hear anything. After Shi Shang cursed the system's 18 generations of ancestors, he forced a smile and said, I'm lost. Damn it. This time, Feng Ci has split into two people. Am I going to be a scumbag who hugs two beauties? Oh my god, it's scary just thinking about it. She only wants one wife, not two. Even if it's both of them, she can't accept it. So if it really didn't work out, then goodbye. Yep, let's do that. Ying Ji didn't even raise his eyebrows as he reached out to press the red button on the corridor. Shi Shang's eyes widened and he quickly reached out to press his hand. Big brother, I'm just lost. You don't have to find someone to catch me. Shadow Priest's eyelashes trembled and he lowered his head. Let go. Shi Shang met his gaze, which was completely different from the boy she had met before. His eyes were like the vast starry sky, cold and empty, without a single point of focus. Ahem. Shi Shang calmly withdrew his hand. Shadow Priest pressed the button and the door beside her opened with a ding. Shadow Priest strode in with his long legs. F***CK, it's actually an elevator. Shi Shang was a little confused. He had thought that this thing was a room because it was built to look exactly like a room. Who knew that it was actually an elevator? This kind of designer would definitely be punished. Shadow Priest stood inside for a while. The elevator door remained open. He suddenly raised his head. Come in. Shi Shang scratched his head and stepped into the elevator. He pressed the green button and then looked at the watch on his wrist. Shi Shang was standing behind him, so she couldn't see what he was looking at. Do you have a twin brother? Shi Shang poked his head out from behind and asked him. Shadow Priest lowered his hand and used his sleeve to cover his watch. He coldly denied, No. No. Then was she hallucinating just now? Ding. The elevator door opened and there were many people in white coats outside. One of them was the one who had examined Shi Shang. Someone saw the person in the elevator and his expression froze. Then, the entire area fell silent. Shadow Priest pushed Shi Shang out of the elevator and said coldly, Keep a close eye on your people. Next time, come to my place and get me from the morgue. The elevator door closed with the sound of Shadow Priest's voice. Shi Shang. WTF? I must have met a fake Feng Ci. It must be fake. It must be fake. The person in the white coat came forward with a worried expression. Didn't I tell you to rest well? Why did you run around? You even went to Shadow Priest's place. Fortunately, you didn't provoke him today. Otherwise, we would really have to go to the morgue to get you. I'm hungry. Shi Shang looked at the strange elevator door and cursed in his heart. I'm very confused now. I need to calm down. The desert era had been around for more than 300 years and a new political system had been formed. In the entire system, the committee had the most power. Of course, Shadow Priest wasn't a big shot in the committee, but he was famous for being scary in this underground building. No one knew where the higher-ups found him. He had his own office and if anyone dared to barge in, he would really send them to the morgue. There was a lot of controversy about Shadow Priest, but most people were still afraid of him. After all, he seemed to have a backer. After Shi Shang heard the gossip about Shadow Priest, he started to ask about the boy who looked exactly like Shadow Priest. He looks like Shadow Priest? The one who answered was the doctor who had examined her. When he heard this question, Shi Shang was also confused. You must have seen wrongly. How can there be someone who looks exactly like Shadow Priest? The doctor said that he had never seen anyone who looked like Shadow Priest. Really? The doctor shook his head. You just woke up. You must be hallucinating. Shi Shang. Did I see a ghost? Impossible, the system said so. That person must exist. But Shadow Priest also denied it. So annoying. Why did he have to use his brain again? Shi Shang was going crazy. The doctor thought that she wasn't feeling well and asked people to check her thoroughly. Don't be too agitated these few days. Try to stay calm. She couldn't calm down at all. Someone will come to ask you about what happened earlier. Can you do it? The doctor was afraid that Sher Shang would break down and asked carefully. If you didn't rest well, I can ask them to come later. Ask what? Sher Shang put down his hand that was grabbing his hair. You don't remember? The doctor had a strange expression on his face. What should I remember? Sher Shang asked back. The doctor was silent for a moment. Do you remember why you are here? How would I know why I am here? Sher Shang continued to ask. The doctor. If you don't know why you are here, why are you still so calm? Do you know that this is against human behavior? Don't ask me how I did it. I don't know either. It's for the plot. Please don't take it too seriously. Hashtag begging for mango flavored votes today. Hashtag cast your votes at the end of the month. Cuties. Hashtag Jinxiu. Emoju. Chutan. Little cutie. 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 Love you guys. See if it's time to vote for me when I'm back. Chapter 1869. Since Sher Shang didn't know anything, the doctor refused to let someone ask him. He said that he still needed to be observed for a while. It was very likely that his brain was damaged. Perhaps someone else had woken up, so the doctor didn't insist on asking Sher Shang. Who were those people just now? They were so arrogant. They must be from the top. I think they're here to look for someone called Jian Yi. Jian Yi? Yes, I think she's one of the people in our experiment. I don't know who she is. A few gossipy staff members walked past Sher Shang. The originally lively discussion suddenly disappeared after a few seconds. They stood against the wall and looked in a certain direction. A few men in black came out of a room with a girl. Miss, this way please. Jian Yi seemed to be a little unwilling, but those people protected her in the middle. Not a single gap was left for her to escape. Jian Yi's eyes rolled around. Suddenly, she covered her stomach. Ouch. My stomach hurts. I need to go to the toilet. Miss, you've already used this excuse just now. The bodyguard in black in front of Jian Yi coldly exposed her. Jian Yi's face stiffened. She put down her hand that was covering her stomach. Then I'm hungry. I want to eat something before I leave. Miss, sir has already prepared a welcome banquet for you. You can eat as much as you want when you go back. The bodyguard in black was still unmoved. Jian Yi clenched her fists and gritted her teeth behind the bodyguard in black. From the corner of her eye, she happened to glance at Sher Shang, who was sitting in the corridor. Her eyes lit up and she pounced on Sher Shang. It's great that you're fine. I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again. I knew you would be fine. Jian Yi's voice was very loud. The entire corridor seemed to be filled with her echoes. Help me. Jian Yi quickly whispered into Sher Shang's ear before the bodyguard in black came over. Sher Shang looked at the bodyguard in black expressionlessly. Please keep a close eye on your family members. I'm not going to play with the female lead. Something big will happen. Jian Yi. Jian Yi was escorted away by the bodyguards in black. She looked at the Sher Shang in disbelief. After all, they had been through thick and thin together. How could he be so cruel? Not long after Jian Yi was invited away, the alarm sounded in the corridor. Everyone was stunned at first, then they got busy. Sher Shang was also invited back to his room. Stay in the room and don't run around, the doctor told Sher Shang. What happened? Sher Shang frowned and asked the doctor. The desert lizard ran in. The defense here is higher, so it shouldn't be a problem. Don't worry, the doctor said quickly and left the room. Desert lizard? What the hell? Desert lizards were a type of lizard. The desertification had mutated them. They were huge in size and had very strong attack power. They often appeared in groups. These mutated species were now the biggest threat to humans. In order to deal with these things, when humans built underground structures, they would strengthen the outer perimeter. But this time, for some reason, the desert lizards had managed to sneak in. The alarm kept ringing, and the chaotic crowd in the corridor had disappeared. Shi Sheng frowned, changed into a clean set of clothes, and went out of the room. When she went out, she did not see the staff from before. Other than the alarm, the corridor was unusually quiet. Just as Shi Sheng walked to the exit, the elevator door opened with a ding. The bodyguards in black fell out of the elevator, and at the same time, a huge lizard fell out. The entire elevator was covered in blood. The desert lizard happened to be facing Shi Sheng. It got up and opened its sharp teeth to bite Shi Sheng. Shi Sheng slashed at the lizard expressionlessly. The iron sword split the desert lizard into two. The elevator was broken, so Shi Sheng could only use the corridor. He followed the route he took last time and walked all the way to the dessert room. The room was also in a mess. All kinds of desserts were scattered on the floor, and there was a dead desert lizard lying on the ground. He searched the room but could not find the boy. In the end, Shi Sheng could only look for the shadow sacrifice. Bang! The metal door fell with the sound. The lights in the corridor flickered, reflecting the blood splattered everywhere. It looked a bit like the scene of a horror movie. Jian Yi and two bodyguards in black were standing next to the metal door. When the metal door suddenly fell, they were so scared that their nerves tensed up. There was light and shadow behind the metal door, and a slender shadow came out from inside. Jian Yi and the two bodyguards in black could not help but step back. They held their breaths. With every inch that the thing on the other side moved, they became more nervous. "Be careful!" Jian Yi shouted. She had already pushed the bodyguard next to her away. In the darkness, a desert lizard flew out and bit Jian Yi's arm. Its sharp teeth seemed to have bitten into the bone. Blood flowed into a line and flowed to the ground. The bodyguard in black quickly got up and joined forces with another person to subdue the desert lizard and save Jian Yi. "Let's go." The bodyguard in black carried Jian Yi. "Miss, hang in there." Bang! Bang! The desert lizard caught up from behind. The two bodyguards in black were even faster. "Go in front, quick." The bodyguard in black rushed into a room as fast as he could. He turned around and locked the door. The desert lizard hit the door with its head. Bang! There was a loud bang, followed by continuous banging sounds. The bodyguard in black leaned against the door. His forehead was covered in cold sweat. The banging sounds outside were like a drum, beating the tip of his heart. Click! The bodyguard in black's tensed nerves snapped after this soft sound. He looked at the source of the sound. The window on the side of the room was opened. He immediately aimed the gun in his hand in that direction. "Don't shoot. It's a person." The bodyguard in black who was carrying Jian Yi immediately said. A figure came in from the other side. After seeing clearly that it was a person, the bodyguard in black heaved a sigh of relief. Shi Sheng did not expect to see someone here. Moreover, it was someone he had seen before. Shi Sheng did not want to stay with the female lead. Therefore, she went back the way she came and disappeared through the window. The bodyguard in black was confused. What was going on? Shi Sheng changed his path and finally found the room where the shadow had appeared. However, the door was wide open. There was no one inside. There were no signs of struggle or fighting. Nothing should have happened. Shi Sheng walked around the room and stood in front of a row of bookshelves. Had they left? Rustle. The sound of the desert lizard crawling could be heard from outside. A desert lizard crawled in from the door. Its gaze was instantly fixed on Shi Sheng. It swung its tail and quickly rushed toward Shi Sheng. It stuck out its sticky tongue and tried to wrap around Shi Sheng. Shi Sheng dodged to the bookshelf behind him. Its tongue hit the bookshelf. The iron sword cut its tongue at lightning speed. Crack! Crack! The ground beneath Shi Sheng's feet suddenly became empty, and she fell downwards. The fall lasted only 3 seconds. She quickly landed on the ground. The moment she landed, the surrounding lights lit up and extended into the distance. Chapter 1870. This wasn't a wide passageway and it was built very simply. It was probably just an emergency passageway. Sher Shang crawled up with her hands on her waist. There was a black shadow moving on the ground. She narrowed her eyes and spun her iron sword. It hit something with a ding sound. The metal fell to the ground with a clang. The boy stared at her in a daze. The cold glint of the iron sword magnified in his eyes. Sher Shang abruptly stopped her iron sword. The sword slanted and landed on the wall beside him. "You! Why are you here?" The boy was still a little weak at the beginning, but he was full of energy at the end. It fell. Sher Shang put away the iron sword. The boy glanced at her and carefully picked up the metal object on the ground. It was a silver gun. It was small and exquisite, like an ornament. The boy looked at it. "Luckily it's not broken. Why are you so violent? If you didn't suddenly approach me, I wouldn't have done anything." Sher Shang rolled her eyes. "You're in the right when you barged in?" The boy was very angry. "If it weren't for the fact that there were so many desert lizards outside, I would have thrown you out directly." "Humph." The boy put away the gun and snorted. "Follow me." Sher Shang. So this personality was stubborn, soft-hearted, and liked to explode? Why did she suddenly feel that he was very cute? Calm down. Calm down. There were two of them now. She had to figure it out and kill one of them. Your Feng Ci will cry if he hears this. Hashtag when the host is scary, even the Milky Way can't stop her. Hashtag the boy seemed to be very familiar with this place. He led Sher Shang left and right without stopping when they came to a fork in the road. "What's your name?" Sher Shang walked beside him. "Ying Sheng." The boy was furious after answering. "Why are you asking for my name? I'm telling you, don't you dare have any ideas about me." "So what if I have ideas about you?" However, in reality, Sher Shang was very serious. "Who is Ying Shang to you?" Ying Shang opened his mouth. The words were already at the tip of his tongue, but he swallowed them back. "Why should I tell you?" "Oh, is this your motive?" He turned to look at Sher Shang with a face full of certainty. "You can give up on that idea." "Sher Shang, shadow sacrifice only likes me," Ying Shang muttered. "Poof. I've been waiting for you for a long time. What the hell was going on? I'm definitely dreaming. Maybe I'll wake up in the desert." While Sher Shang was cursing internally, Ying Shang had already led her to the end of the corridor. He pressed on the wall twice, and the wall parted to reveal the people inside. Ying Ji stood in the middle with a cold expression. Ying Shang immediately rushed over. "Ying Ji, let's go." If he had a tail behind him, it would definitely be wagging furiously. Sher Shang face-bombed. Forget it, she should just destroy this plane. This development was completely different from what she had expected. Normally, if a person was divided into two people, then these two people would be like fire and water. But what did she see? She must have encountered a fake plot. Who told you to pick up random things? Ying Ji's gaze swept past Ying Shang, landing on the lifeless Sher Shang. "I didn't pick them up. She followed me here." Ying Shang hurriedly shook his head, trying to clear his name. "Sher Shang. F***K. Didn't you tell I to follow you? You'll get beaten up if you're so fickle." "Who should I kill first?" The host's beast instincts are acting up. "Scary." "Sher Shang. Shut up. If you hadn't created this strange plane for me, would I have done something like this?" Ying Ji bent down to pick up the bag beside his feet and threw it to Ying Shang. Then he turned to leave. "There's the last bus in 10 minutes. If you can't make it in time, you'll stay here." It wasn't clear whether this sentence was meant for Ying Shang or Sher Shang. Sher Shang was still thinking about who to kill first, so he didn't pay attention to Ying Ji's words. Seeing that she wasn't leaving, Ying Shang couldn't help but come back. "Are you leaving or not? If not, we're leaving." "Calm down." Sher Shang kept warning himself in his heart as he followed Ying Shang in a certain direction. This direction led to the outside. It was also filled with yellow sand outside. A few military green cars were parked outside. Ingji walked out and one of them immediately drove over. Ingji stood beside the car door, looking at Ingshang who had lagged behind. Ingshang hugged her bag and ran a few steps, dashing into the car like a wisp of smoke. Ingji also got in and gestured to the driver, preparing to start the car. But Ingshang said something to him. Ingji frowned and looked impatiently in Shishang's direction. Ingshang waved at her. Hurry up. Calm down. Keep smiling. Shishang got into the car and the car immediately started, sliding into the yellow sand. The car was very big. Shishang sat opposite them, looking at the two of them thoughtfully. There must be something wrong. Ingji closed her eyes, ignoring Shishang's gaze. Ingshang's eyes darted around. It was clearly the same face, but it gave off a completely different feeling. It was easy to tell who was who at a glance. What's your name? Ingshang finally remembered something important. Yu Huan. Ingji opened her eyes, her gaze landing lightly on Shishang. You're Yu Huan. Yes, you know me? The original owner's memory seemed to have stopped at the desert and had no memory of the outside world at all. I don't know you. Ingji turned her head away, looking at the yellow sand outside. Shishang also looked out the window, vaguely able to see the military green car in the distance. Shishang glanced at Ingji and asked, Does this count as retreating? Someone purposely let the desert lizards in. All the defensive lines have collapsed, so we can only retreat. Ingshang nodded. Shishang, maybe it was the male lead who did it. The host was randomly throwing the blame to the male lead again. Her heart ached for the male lead, but for the remaining 2 seconds, it ached for herself. Ever since that conversation, Ingshang hadn't spoken again. Ingshang, on the other hand, had been chattering non-stop. But from Shishang's observations, Ingshang seemed to be a bit afraid of Ingsheng. They never had any physical contact. Sometimes, Ingsheng's gaze was enough to shut Ingshang up. And the driver didn't seem to be able to see Ingsheng. Mr. Ingji, why don't we rest here today? The 10 ghost caves are just up ahead. It's easy to get into trouble if we go there at night. The driver turned his head to ask Ingji. Ingji opened his eyes, and after a moment, he nodded. The driver found a place where they could avoid the wind and sand, and then got out of the car to settle this important matter. Ingji continued to close his eyes and rest. Ingshang couldn't sit still after a while, so he got out of the car as well. In the end, only Shishang and Ingji were left in the car. Shishang moved to his side. You know me, right? No. Ingji still replied firmly, when we reach Rongguang base, you will leave on your own, understand? You definitely know me. Shishang was certain. Ingji glanced at her, then closed his eyes and didn't speak. Asterisk tickets at the end of the month. Chapter 1871. Ingshang ran over. Ingji, are you hungry? Ingji stretched out his hand and Ingshang immediately placed a box in his hand. Ingji opened the box and there were a few exquisite snacks inside. Ingshang watched nervously as Ingji ate the snacks. It wasn't until he was done that a smile appeared on Ingshang's face. Ingji returned the box to Ingshang and Ingshang happily got out of the car. After a while, he came back up and gave him a glass of water before giving some snacks to Shishang. Shishang. If it wasn't for Feng Xi's aura in Ingshang's body, she would have suspected that the two of them were having an improper relationship. Shishang silently finished the snacks and curled up in a corner to think about something. This situation must have been deliberately set up by those two idiots. Ingshang and Ingji's relationship was definitely not as superficial as it seemed on the surface. She had to calm down. She couldn't be fooled. Ingji's gaze swept past the girl in front of him. Pursing his lips, he touched the ring on his middle finger and gently turned it. The girl had fallen asleep and her light breathing could be heard in the car. Ingji's fingertips rubbed against the ring. After a long while, he moved slightly and Ingshang suddenly opened the car door. She fell asleep. He crawled around in the back and took out a blanket to cover Sher Shang. Seriously, it's so cold at night and she dares to sleep like this. Ingji leaned back and closed his eyes to rest. Ingji. Shang leaned over. You. Shut up. Shang blinked and silently sat back down. The night passed peacefully. However, something happened the next morning. The chauffeur was gone. When Shang woke up in the morning, he saw the chauffeur. The chauffeur said that he had to go to the toilet and never came back. Ji went out alone to look for the chauffeur. When he came back, his face was dark. Leave this place. Shang, drive. Ha! Shang was confused. I don't know how to drive. Ji's eyes seemed to twitch. He looked at Sher Shang, who was daydreaming in the back seat. Do you know how to drive? Sher Shang's eyes darted around. Yes. Drive. Ji reached out to pull her down and pushed her into the driver's seat. No. Where's the driver? We're dead. Ji got into the front passenger seat. If you don't drive, we'll die too. Then let's die together. Since this plane was such a scam, they might as well die. Shadow Priest. Ji, it's a golden viper. Shang jumped into the car. Drive quickly. Sher Shang leaned against the car window and looked back. A group of golden snakes were heading towards them. The densely packed snakes could be killed in minutes. Drive. Are you ordering me around? Sher Shang tilted his head and looked at Shadow Sacrifice provocatively. Shadow Priest's eyes darkened. He pulled down the partition between the front and back seats and leaned over to lock Sher Shang in the seat. Didn't you ask me if I knew you? I know you. He raised his hand in front of Sher Shang. When you ran away from your marriage, did you ever think that this day would come? Sher Shang's gaze landed on his middle finger. Sher Shang instinctively touched her finger. She didn't have a ring, but in the host's memory, there was one. She had thrown it away. The host and Shadow Priest were engaged? But the host ran away. Shadow Priest sat back down and said coldly, "Drive now." Sher Shang took a deep breath and started the car. After driving out, he asked, "Do you like Yu Huan a lot?" "It's just a political marriage." Shadow Priest's voice was faint, as if he didn't notice Sher Shang's words. "Even if you didn't run away from the marriage, I would have thought of a way to cancel it." "Then what are you angry about?" Shadow Priest lifted his eyes. Embarrassing. He was the one who ran away from the marriage. This matter was always treated as a joke. How could he not be angry? Sher Shang suddenly reached out and grabbed his middle finger. He took the ring off and threw it out of the window. "Since you think it's embarrassing, then don't keep it. At most, I'll let you run away from the marriage once." Shadow Priest felt that there was something wrong with her words and didn't immediately reply. "You'll let me run away from the marriage once? Miss you, are you planning to go back to the same old grass?" Shadow Priest figured out what she meant. "Why can't I?" Shadow Priest frowned and looked out the window with pursed lips. The car drove steadily all the way to Rongguang Base. Rongguang Base had buildings above ground and there were people living there. However, most people still lived underground. The daytime here wasn't suitable for people at all. The temperature could rise to more than 45 degrees. Shadow Priest had a pass and could drive the car directly to the lower level. Sher Shang stopped the car. At the turn, a group of people came over and stood outside the car. "Sir, welcome back." Honk honk honk. The car behind them honked deafeningly. Then another group of people rushed out from the other side and went straight to the car behind. "Sir, it's committee member Jian's people." Shadow Priest got out of the car and looked at the people rushing to the car behind. "Go and inform Mr. Yu that Miss Yu Huan is back." "Miss Yu Huan? The Miss Yu Huan who ran away from Sir's marriage?" Shadow Priest's expression showed that he was very unhappy. The others didn't dare to say anything. "Yes." Shadow Priest held the car door. "Wait here. Mr. Yu will send someone to pick you up soon." Shadow Priest, is it really her? Ing Shang popped his head out from behind. If I had known, I wouldn't have been so nice to her. Shadow Priest didn't answer Ing Sheng. Instead, he left with the group of people surrounding him. Ing Shang shouted for him to wait and quickly disappeared in front of Shi Shang. Then, the group of people behind them disappeared. Shi Shang seemed to have seen Jian Yi's pale face. The entire underground parking lot was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Shi Shang. Shi Shang waited in the parking lot for a few minutes before he was picked up by the so-called Mr. Yu. It was said that he was Yu Huan's grandfather. The reason why Yu Huan left here was because she was unhappy with the engagement that Grandpa Yu had set for her. At that time, Yu Huan had never met Shadow Priest. She only heard that he was a pervert with a strange temper. Therefore, the original owner, who believed in the freedom of love, ran away. She left behind a mess and Shadow Priest, who had run away from the engagement. Shi Shang was scolded by Grandpa Yu for 3 hours as soon as he returned. After that, Grandpa Yu asked about his well-being for another 3 hours. By the time Shi Shang left Grandpa Yu's office, she had already sorted out the cause and effect. Rongguang Base was equivalent to the capital of this world. The people here were all big shots. The original owner's parents weren't in Rongguang Base, but they held important positions. The original owner had lived with Grandpa Yu since she was young. Grandpa Yu was also a member of the committee. In the normal world, he would be the third generation of an official. As for why she had an engagement with Shadow Priest, she still didn't know. This is a fake group. Little Fairy, 1 Ms. Perfect, 2 Ms. Perfect, 3 Ms. Perfect, and countless Ms. Perfect system. Are you crazy? Little Fairy, you're the crazy one. System, if you're not crazy, why are you counting Ms. Perfect? Little Fairy, because they are my fair, rich, and beautiful girls system. You must be crazy. Little Fairy. Vote. Chapter 1872. Yu Huan's identity was relatively simple. Her parents were still alive, her grandfather loved her, and her family was happy. Jian Yi was more miserable. Her father was a bastard who spoiled his concubine and neglected his wife. Jian Yi's mother was so angry that she died. The reason why Jian Yi was exposed to the outside world was because of the mistress. Sure enough, the protagonist's background was bumpy. Teske. She suddenly went from having nothing to having everything. The process was really a little flattering. However, why did they lock I up here? Miss, you can't go out. After being stopped for the umpteenth time, Shi Shang was furious. Why can't I go out? Why are you locking me up? Miss, Mr. Yu said that you can't go out. The bodyguards who stopped her were also helpless. They were only doing their job because they were paid. Where was I's sword? Huan, An old voice sounded from the room next to her. Come in. Shi Shang walked past the bodyguards with the iron sword. The door was open, so Shi Shang went in directly. Unexpectedly, Ing Ji was also there. He had changed into a very black suit and was drinking a cup of tea elegantly. His eyes were lowered, hiding his expression. Grandpa Yu was wearing a silk nightgown. It seemed that he had just woken up and met Ing Ji, so he hadn't changed his clothes yet. Huan why aren't you apologizing to Xiao Ji? Grandpa Yu scolded, but there wasn't much blame in his tone. Ing Ji cooperated and put down his teacup, as if waiting for Shi Shang to apologize. Shi Shang knew what Grandpa Yu wanted her to apologize for. It was about running away from the marriage. When she came back yesterday, Grandpa Yu had already told her to invite Ing Ji to come over and apologize solemnly. However, she didn't expect Grandpa Yu to act so quickly. He said yesterday that he would invite him over today. Shi Shang stabbed the iron sword at his feet and stared at Ing Ji with a faint smile. Grandpa, how can an apology express my sincerity? Grandpa Yu immediately became vigilant. Don't mess with me. If you dare to mess around again, do you believe that I will send you to your parents? Shi Shang waved his hand generously. Grandpa, I think I can make up for my mistake by marrying you. Grandpa Yu was confused by Shi Shang's words. Who was the one who refused to do anything and even ran away from the marriage? Why was she offering herself to him now? Xiao Ji, this child just does whatever she wants. Don't laugh at her. What happened last time was our fault. As her grandfather, I apologize to you on her behalf. Grandpa Yu sincerely apologized to Shadow Sacrifice. The Shadow Priest stood up politely and nodded. Mr. Yu, you're too kind. There's no need to apologize. It's not a big deal. However, Miss Yu Huan said that she's willing to repay me with her body. I wonder if that's true. There seemed to be a few more stars in the boundless starry sky in Ying Ji's eyes, making him seem more human. Grandpa Yu glared at Shi Shang. Huan, hurry up and apologize to Xiao Ji. Don't talk nonsense about this anymore. I'm not talking nonsense. I'm telling the truth. Grandpa Yu glared at her. It wasn't easy for him to clear things up with Shadow Sacrifice, but her words instantly put them back to square one. Grandpa Yu almost vomited blood at this unfilial granddaughter of his. Grandpa Yu, if that's the case, let's not cancel the marriage. Shadow Sacrifice looked at Shi Shang. Miss Yu, what do you think? I don't have any objections. Shi Shang spread his hands. Grandpa Yu. What? Who was the one who was angry because this unfilial granddaughter ran away from the marriage? The two of them came back together this time. Could it be that there were some sparks on the way back? Xiao Ji. Think about it carefully. She's just a novelty. Grandpa Yu tried to persuade Shadow Sacrifice. If the previous incident happened again, he really wouldn't be able to face anyone anymore. Shi Shang. If this was his granddaughter, she must be his biological granddaughter. Since both parties didn't agree to the marriage, what else could Grandpa Yu say? He didn't understand youngsters these days. In order to prevent the previous incident from happening again, Grandpa Yu packed up Shi Shang and sent him to Shadow Sacrifice without hesitation. He looked as if he couldn't wait for Shi Shang to give birth to a child immediately so that he could be sure that there weren't any unforeseen circumstances. Shi Shang, who was chased out of the door. What kind of sin did I commit? Shadow Sacrifice lowered his head, the corners of his mouth slightly upturned. But when he looked up, his expression was cold again. What are you laughing at? Shi Shang threw the luggage to him. Shadow Sacrifice handed the luggage to the person behind him. When did Miss Yu see me laughing? Just now. Do you have evidence? Shi Shang reached out to pinch his cheeks and forced a smile. Don't you have it now? Shadow Sacrifice's eyes darkened as he grabbed her wrist and tightened his grip slightly. Miss Yu, I hope you won't touch me without my permission. Shi Shang pulled her wrist out and snorted coldly. You're not allowed to touch it, even though it's studded with diamonds. Shadow Sacrifice didn't comment and got into the car beside them. Shadow Sacrifice lived at the edge of Rongguang Base. Even though they lived underground, it wasn't much different from above ground. The roads connected all the areas, but they could only walk in small areas. Shadow Sacrifice's place was obviously more luxurious than other places. The lighting and greenery were almost the same as outside. Ying Shang was watering in the garden. When he saw Shadow Sacrifice return, he immediately threw down the watering can and ran over. Shadow Sacrifice, you're back. Why did you bring her back? Arrange a room for her, Shadow Sacrifice instructed Ying Shang. She'll live here from now on. Ah! Ying Shang was surprised. Shadow Sacrifice went inside after giving his instructions, leaving Shi Shang and Ying Shang staring at each other. Ying Shang's aura was too faint, especially when Shadow Sacrifice was around. She almost couldn't sense it. Why are you so annoying? Ying Shang snorted angrily. I already told you that Shadow Sacrifice doesn't like you. Let me tell you, don't think that Shadow Sacrifice will take a second look at you just because you're living here. He won't like you. Shi Shang. She was actually reduced to fighting for favor with Feng Ci. Poisonous. Although Ying Shang didn't welcome Shi Shang, he was still very considerate when preparing the room. Shadow Sacrifice's place seemed to be off-limits to outsiders. Other than Ying Shang, there were no other living creatures. Ying Shang took care of all the household chores. It was simply a necessity for traveling. Shadow Sacrifice spent most of his time in his own room. You wouldn't see him for 24 hours a day. Shadow Sacrifice hates it when people disturb him when he's working. You'd better not go. Ying Shang whined. You might as well let me try my new desserts. Shi Shang looked at the various boxes in front of him. His mouth was already sick of them. Can't you make something else? They were all desserts. It was fine if she ate them once, but if she ate them every day, she would become an idiot. But Shadow Sacrifice doesn't like to eat anything else. Ying Shang frowned. I'll make whatever Shadow Sacrifice likes to eat. I can't make anything that he doesn't like. Towards the end, fear flashed through Ying Shang's eyes. Although it was fleeting, Shi Shang still caught it. Chapter 1873. Miss you, can you do me a favor? She didn't know when Ying Ji had appeared at the entrance of the dining room. Ying Ji stood at the side with his head lowered, like a child who had done something wrong. Shi Shang tilted his head. Aren't you going to eat something? Ying Ji glanced at her and hesitated for a moment before walking into the dining room. Ying Ji immediately served the snacks he had prepared. Ying Ji seemed to be in a hurry and ate very quickly. After he was done, he stood up. Come with me. Ying Ji, go and rest. You don't have to come out if I don't call you. Oh. Ying Ji stood in the dining room and watched as Shi Shang and Ying Ji left. He sniffled and cleaned up the things on the table before returning to his room in a bad mood. Shi Shang was brought into a room. There were all kinds of equipment placed here that looked very advanced. There was even a large mirror on the wall that reflected the entire room. Sit. Ying Ji pointed at a chair that didn't look normal and gestured for Shi Shang to sit. Shi Shang gulped. What do you want? He hadn't said anything before and now he was waiting for her here? She knew that this person wasn't easy to talk to. Why did he agree so easily? He had been holding back for such a long time. Shadow Priest held a knife of unknown use in his hand. Now you're scared. What a joke. Shi Shang straightened his face. I've never been afraid of anyone. Why would I be afraid of you? She was just shocked, okay? Ying Ji put down the knife and picked up a helmet. I heard that you have a high compatibility with the system. Help me test it out. Shi Shang. Just for this? F***CK. I didn't guess the beginning or the ending correctly. Shi Shang took the helmet. What's this? Ying Ji pulled out a chair and sat down. Do you know about mental strength? It's also known as psychokinesis. I know. What's the use of this? Shi Shang interrupted Ying Ji. Ying Ji's eyes flashed with astonishment. He didn't even use the lines he had prepared. He had told others about the theory of spiritual power before, but no one believed him. They all thought that it was a fantasy. Shadow Priest suppressed his emotions and said, This planet is no longer suitable for humans to live on. The resources have been used up. If we continue to stay here, we will die sooner or later. We have to leave this world and find a suitable planet for humans to live on. Shadow Sacrifice's idea was much more advanced. No wonder no one was willing to believe him. They said that your compatibility with the system is very high. I suspect that you're using mental power, so I need to test it out. Shadow Sacrifice's tone was much better. There won't be any danger. Shi Shang threw the helmet down. There's no need to experiment. Spiritual power does exist. I can tell you how to cultivate it and even help you leave this planet. But you have to answer one question of mine. The first two sounded reasonable, but the last one didn't sound right. Shadow Sacrifice frowned. What problem? What's your relationship with Ying Shang? The Shadow Sacrifice thought that she would ask an awesome question, but who knew that she would ask such a question? That's it? Shadow Sacrifice wasn't sure. Shadow Sacrifice pondered for a moment. Ing Shang is my clone. He should follow the program I wrote, but I don't know why he has his own consciousness. Damn, in Xuanhuan terms, Ing Shang had his soul in his body, so of course he had his own consciousness. He really didn't expect this. Ing Shang's body was made from a special material that Shadow Sacrifice had discovered. It could block people's retina. In Shadow Sacrifice's words, it was more like a type of radiation, but it didn't have any side effects. If Ing Shang wasn't willing, no one would be able to see him. Of course, if someone saw him, they would just think that it was Shadow Sacrifice and wouldn't think much of it. Perhaps because Shang's mental power was very strong, the radiation had no effect on her. That was why she could see Ing Shang directly. So what should she do now? If she killed Ing Shang, would the missing part of Shadow Sacrifice be able to return to his body? You've been asking me this question since we met. Do you care about him? When Shadow Sacrifice asked this, he didn't realize that there was a murderous aura in his voice. When he first found out that Ing Shang had his own consciousness, he wanted to destroy him, but he hesitated when he was about to do it. In the end, he could only keep him by his side and order him around like an intelligent robot. This wasn't easy to answer. They were both the same person. Why would there be such a multiple-choice question in this world? Shadow Sacrifice glanced at her and lowered his head to fiddle with the parts on the table. You can leave. Shadow Sacrifice. Get out. Shang also felt that she needed to think about it carefully. She didn't continue speaking and got up to leave the room. The moment Shang left the room, he saw Ing Shang hugging his knees and squatting in the corner. There was a strange aura around him. Does he not need me anymore? Ing Shang's eyes were misty. Sadness was written all over his face. If Shadow Sacrifice didn't need him, then there was no reason for him to exist. He would be destroyed. Shang, I don't want this anymore. Shang walked around Ing Shang angrily and left. This multiple-choice question was the test this time, wasn't it? What a scammer. Why are you leaving so quickly? Can't you listen to what I have to say? Ing Shang chased after Shang. Suddenly, the topic took a 360-degree turn. Are you hungry? Shang staggered. This guy must have only inherited a little of Shadow Sacrifice's intelligence. He was so stupid. Shadow Sacrifice just said that I can make something else for you. Ing Shang continued, Do you want to eat? No. Right now, she only wanted to chop someone to calm down. What was there to eat? For the next few days, the Shadow Sacrifice stayed in that room. Ing Shang often appeared in front of Shang. He was as sentimental as a woman, but his emotions came and went quickly. Even if Shang didn't pay him any attention, he could still go on chattering non-stop. As time passed, Ing Shang forgot that Shang was here to snatch the Shadow Sacrifice from him. Xiao Huan, this is for you. Ing Shang handed the flower he had just plucked to Shang with a smile. Suddenly, a hand reached in from the side and took the flower. The flowers in my garden are not for you to pluck for fun. Ing Shang pursed his lips. The flowers in the garden were all planted by me. Ing Shang narrowed his eyes. He used his strength to break the flower in half. The sharp thorns on the flower pierced his hand and blood dyed the flower red. Shang was shocked. He quickly reached out to pull the flower out of his hand. What are you doing? Ing Shang didn't know what to feel. He thought that Shang was worried that he would break the flower and think that he was bullying Ing Shang. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. But very quickly, his sneer froze in his heart. Shang was carefully picking out the thorns that had pierced his palm. Shadow Priest's breathing paused for a moment before he pulled Shang into his arms and led her out. Ing Shang stood in the garden, watching Ing Shang and Shang leave in a daze. His hands slowly fell to his sides. I feel like there are a lot of people here who want to beat me to death. Ha 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 ha. Hashtag today's votes for Phoenix Pill Flavor hashtag, Bien Chiliang. Weiliang. Chapter 1874. Ing-ji brought Shi Shang to a square where many children were playing. He found a place to sit and said, "Sit." Shi Shang sat beside him and looked at the children in the square. Neither of them spoke for a while, and the atmosphere was strangely silent. "Why were you so angry just now?" Shi Shang asked him curiously after a while. Ing-ji rubbed his wound and his eyes turned cold. Ing Shang's self-awareness is getting stronger. He already dared to talk back to him today. Ing Shang wasn't his brother, he was just a machine he made. He shouldn't have such self-awareness. He shouldn't exist in the first place. Then let's kill him. Shi Shang said indifferently. Ing-ji's aura became stronger. If she had to choose who to protect, she would definitely choose Ing-ji. The host was indeed a heartless person. She could still be so calm at this time. If I could, I would have done it long ago. Ing-ji looked tired. Ing Shang was different from other machines and he couldn't do it. "I'll help you." Ing-ji looked over. "You've been with him for the past few days. Don't you have any feelings for him at all? Please, he's the one who shows up in front of me every day." Shi Shang rolled his eyes. He wasn't going to take the blame. Other than during meals, she didn't take the initiative to look for him. Feelings aren't something that can be gained just because you've spent time together. She wanted a complete Feng Ci, not just a part of him. Ing-ji looked at her deeply. He had underestimated this woman. "Yuhuan, Io, it's really you. I thought I had misjudged you." The girl in the pink dress walked over and looked at her sarcastically. When her gaze landed on Ing-ji, her beautiful eyes flashed with surprise. This man was really good-looking. But he was sitting with this woman. The girl's eyes burned with jealousy. "Didn't you run away from the marriage? Why did you come back? Are you regretting it?" "That's right, the environment outside isn't suitable for humans. How long can you last outside? You might as well come back and marry that pervert." The girl in the pink dress deliberately said this in front of Ing-ji. However, after talking for a long time, Shi Shang and the shadow priest didn't respond. The girl couldn't help but get a little angry. "Yuhuan, I'm talking to you. What do you mean by this? Have you lost your manners after spending some time with the barbarians?" Shi Shang pinched his earlobe. "Who are you?" The girl's expression froze. She pointed at the Shi Shang, her finger trembling. "Yuhuan, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Why are you acting like you don't know me?" "I really don't know you." The original owner's memory was limited. What could she do? Of course, she chose not to forgive her. "Do you know her?" "I don't know him." Ing-ji stood up, grabbed Shi Shang's hand, and walked out of the square. "Yuhuan, stop right there." The girl stood in front of Shi Shang and said, "You're still engaged, but you're messing around with another man. Aren't you afraid that the pervert will come after you? Sir, I advise you to keep your eyes open and not be fooled by her." She did not believe that a man could tolerate a woman being engaged to another man. Shadow Priest only glanced at the girl from the corner of his eyes. His voice was faint, and one couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. "I'm that pervert." The girl froze on the spot. "What?" Shi Shang shrugged at the girl. "I'm sorry to disappoint you. The person I messed around with is the pervert I'm engaged to." The girl's pupils shrank. How could it be? How could that pervert be so good-looking? She actually called him a pervert in front of him. The girl stood there, her body cold. She didn't even know when Shi Shang and Shadow Priest left. Shi Shang didn't take this incident to heart. Shadow Priest didn't seem to care either. He continued to fiddle with himself all day. As for Ing Shang, Shadow Priest didn't talk to her anymore. She didn't know what he planned to do. Shi Shang also realized that Ing Shang was becoming more and more self-aware. He would argue with Shadow Priest and even go against Shadow Priest's words. Like now. "I don't agree." Ing Shang squatted in the corner of the sofa. "What right do you have to lend me to someone else without asking for my opinion?" "I don't agree, I don't agree." "I've already agreed." Pack your things and go over tomorrow. Shadow Priest's words were unquestionable. No. Ying Shang hugged the corner of the sofa. You're abandoning me. I'm not going. You don't have a choice. Shadow Priest waved his hand and returned to his room. Ying Shang felt extremely wronged. His eyes were misty, but no tears fell. He was just a machine. He wasn't designed to cry, so he didn't have any tears. Xiao Huan, why did he chase me away? Ying Shang looked at the girl sitting on the sofa and eating melon seeds. Didn't he say that it was alone? You'll come back, Shi Shang replied calmly. No. Ying Shang shook his head. I can feel that he wants to abandon me. What did I do wrong? Shi Shang spread his hands. Who the hell knows what you did wrong? Only Shadow Priest knew what he was thinking. Perhaps he couldn't bear to do it, so he sent Ying Shang away. Or maybe he had other considerations. Ying Shang got up from the ground and knocked on Shadow Priest's door. He had to ask why he was sending him away and what he had done wrong. However, Shadow Priest didn't open the door. No matter how much Ying Shang made a fuss outside, the room was dead silent. Ying Shang was sent away the next day, and Shadow Priest didn't appear from beginning to end. Only after those people left did Shadow Priest open the door and come out. He looked at the messy living room and slowly turned his gaze to Shi Shang. He didn't know why, but when he saw her, his heart would always calm down quickly. He suddenly wanted to hug her. This thought came very suddenly, and he couldn't help but open his arms. Shi Shang's lips curled up as he went forward to hug him. The girl's body was soft and pressed against his body. It was like a warm ball of fire, making his limbs feel warm. He felt like he had regained what he had lost. Shadow Priest felt a little strange. This feeling shouldn't have appeared on him, but he really felt it. He quickly let go of Shi Shang and turned to return to his room. Shi Shang. What the hell was wrong with him again? Ha! Shi Shang stretched lazily as he walked out of his room. Good morning, Xiao Huan. She stopped yawning abruptly. In the living room, a familiar person wearing an apron greeted her with a smile. Shi Shang calmly finished his yawn. Why are you here? Shadow Priest brought me back. Ying Shang was very happy and smug. I knew Shadow Priest wouldn't abandon me. Shi Shang. What the hell was Shadow Priest doing? Shi Shang abandoned the enthusiastic Ying Shang and went to the room to look for Shadow Priest. However, there was no one in the room. Shi Shang searched the entire building and finally found her in the garden. He squatted in front of a flower seedling and touched the green leaves with his fingertips. The water droplets on the leaves dripped onto his hand and slowly slid to the ground. Chapter 1875. Ying Ji, what are you thinking? Shi Shang squatted beside him and asked directly, why did you bring him back after sending him away? Ying Ji's fingers curled into fists. His crying annoyed me. His crying annoyed you? You're separated by... Shi Shang's voice trailed off. You mean you can feel what he's doing even though he's not by your side? It's weird, isn't it? Ying Ji stood up with his hands behind his back. I find it weird too. His emotions can affect me now. Do you think he'll replace me completely? Shi Shang pondered for a moment before asking an irrelevant question. What material did you use to create his body? Ying Ji brought Shi Shang to look at the material he used to create Ying Shang's body. There was only a small portion left and it was piled up in a corner of the laboratory. This material was dug out from the ground and had never appeared before. He realized that this material was far more resistant to heat and cold than any material he knew. Shi Shang flipped through the remaining material. He had never seen this material before, but it didn't look like there was anything wrong with it. The problem could only be with Ying Ji. Shadow Student had a part of his soul. When Shadow Sacrifice programmed Shadow Student, he must have injected something into Shadow Student, causing Shadow Student to be able to level up on its own. Of course, it could also be that the two idiots outside did something. If Ying Shang was allowed to continue like this, it was very likely that he would replace Ing-ji just like what Ing-ji said. Headache. It would be faster to kill Ing-sheng. Ing-sheng's self-awareness grew stronger and stronger. The only thing he was thankful for was that he didn't have any other thoughts. However, he was more and more concerned about Shi Sheng. If Ing-ji could be influenced by Ing-sheng, then Ing-sheng would definitely be influenced by Ing-ji too. Ing-ji instinctively wanted to get closer to Shi Sheng. Even if he found it weird, he couldn't control himself. It was just like how he couldn't control himself when he rejected Grandpa Yu's suggestion to break off the engagement and even brought her back. That way, Ing-sheng would subconsciously get closer to Shi Sheng. Even though Ing-ji didn't say anything, Ing-sheng was someone who couldn't hold it in. Therefore, Ing-sheng was directly nice to Shi Sheng, who always made Ing-ji want to strangle him to death. When he had first created this AI robot, it was not for it to snatch people away from him. Come out with me tomorrow. The shadow priest knocked on the Shi Sheng's door. Shi Sheng asked without raising his head, "What are you doing?" Ing-ji took the game console from her hand and lifted her chin with his fingertips, forcing her to look at him. Under Shi Sheng's confused gaze, he leaned over and kissed her forehead. Do I need a reason to accompany my fiancé? Sleep early. After the shadow sacrifice was done, he took the game and left, leaving the Shi Sheng in a mess. I's game console. It wasn't easy for him to dig out a toy, but it was confiscated before he could even warm it up. How infuriating. Ing-ji, who had just put away the game console, turned around and saw Ing-sheng standing there in a daze with a drink in his hand. Ing-ji. Ing-ji walked past him. I don't care what you are, but you'd better not touch my things. Otherwise, even if I destroy them, I won't leave them for anyone else. Ing-ji. Ing-sheng turned around and called out to him. I know you gave me my life and I don't have the right to make any requests. But I really like Xiao Huan. Can you? Ing-ji paused and turned around to walk back. Ing-sheng's voice became weaker and weaker with his footsteps. Ing-ji reached out and pressed against the wall behind him. They were of the same height, but Ing-sheng seemed to have shortened by half a head. He looked at Ing-ji nervously, the fear in his heart still present. Are you sure your feelings for her aren't because of me? Ing-ji played with a strand of his hair. All your feelings are because of me. You like her because I like her. Ing-sheng, you don't have the right to fight with me. From the beginning to the end, you haven't. Ing-ji put down the strand of hair and retracted his hand. He glanced at Ing-sheng. Don't dream about something that doesn't belong to you. Ing-sheng's eyes reflected Ing-ji's tall figure. He turned around and left. All his actions seemed to have been cut in slow motion. All your feelings are because of me. You like her because I like her. Ing-sheng, you don't have the right to fight with me. From the beginning to the end, you haven't. Ing-sheng slid down bit by bit and sat down along the wall. He buried his head between his legs. He understood. He was just made by Ing-ji. If he wanted, he could make many of them. He was never the only one. The only one who was unique was Ing-ji. Shi Sheng stood in the corner and sighed. This situation really couldn't be salvaged. How could he take back the soul in Ing-sheng's body that belonged to Ing-ji? What exactly had Ing-ji given him? The next day, early in the morning, Ing-ji left with Shi Sheng. They first went to a few clothing stores in the underground city to get a gown. Then, they brought her to do her hair. She had a complete makeover. Miss Yu is a natural beauty and suits this style very well. It's practically tailor-made for Miss Yu. The seller praised Shi Sheng generously. It wasn't easy to do business in the underground city. Everyone was thinking about how to get more resources. Who would think about dressing up? Shops like this could only be supported by people with authority. Usually, they wouldn't open for business for a month. Once they opened, they would eat for a month. Do you like it? Shi Sheng stood in front of the full-length mirror. The girl in the mirror was wearing a very exaggerated gauze dress. The fabric was very soft and smooth. She looked like a fairy. Her black hair was casually draped over her shoulders and there was a crown on her head. The hair that was blocking her eyes was pinned back. Don't you think it's exaggerated? Shi Shang tugged at the gauze dress. Her dress was pretty and dignified. Why did she have to change it to this fairy-like dress? You don't like it? Ying Ji could only guess what Shi Shang was implying. The shop owner behind him gestured. Change. Shi Shang raised his hand. I'll take this one. If they kept changing, they would go crazy. When Ying Ji's people went to settle the bill, Shi Shang pulled Ying Ji's hand. Ying Ji, follow us. Let him be. Ying Ji's expression was indifferent. He touched the crown on Shi Shang's head. Why did you choose me and not him? In terms of caring, Ying Ji admitted that he wasn't as good as Ying Sheng. He wasn't as good at talking as Ying Sheng. He wasn't as good at making people happy. Given the same looks, girls would usually choose the one who was good at sweet-talking. Because he's not you. Shi Shang smiled. I know what I want. I won't choose the wrong one. To put it bluntly, Ying Sheng was a fake. How could she give up on the real one and choose a fake one? What do you want? I want the sea of stars. Shi Shang paused. And my sea of stars is you. The sea of stars is you. The flowers are you. Chapter 1876. The Shadow Priest brought Shi Shang to the center of the underground city. It was heavily guarded, but there were many people coming and going. The Shadow Priest opened the car door and helped Shi Shang out. The people around them looked at them. Some looked at the Shadow Priest's face, while others were curious about who they were. The fame of the Shadow Sacrifice was widespread, but not many people had seen him before. Now, none of these people recognized him. However, there were a few people who recognized her. They pointed at her and talked about the Yu family from time to time. The girl in the pink dress also got out of the car. When she saw Shi Shang and the Shadow Priest, she shivered and followed the elders in front of her. Shi Shang looked at the person behind the girl thoughtfully. The female lead was here too. The female lead's appearance meant that something was going to happen. Jen Yi was wearing a simple long dress. Compared to the well-dressed girl in front of her, she was like a Cinderella and a princess. Grandpa Yu slapped Shi Shang on the shoulder. If it wasn't for his loud shout, Shi Shang would have thrown him over his shoulder. Was he his biological son? Who would be responsible for slapping him to death? The Shadow Priest reached out and squeezed Shi Shang's shoulder to comfort him. He nodded and greeted, Grandpa Yu. Shao Priest is here too. Ha ha ha, I'm relieved to see that you two are so close. Grandpa Yu laughed. I told you that Shao Priest is a good child. You didn't believe me and… Ahem, let's not talk about this. Let's go in first. Shi Shang was speechless. Don't bully I because I don't have any memory. According to the rumors outside, the Shadow Priest couldn't be a good child. Is it really okay for you to make him look so good? Grandpa Yu, please. The Shadow Priest was very polite. Grandpa Yu walked to the front with satisfaction and asked Shi Shang a few questions from time to time. As soon as they entered, the onlookers outside were shocked. Who is that man? Why is he so close to Yu Huan? I don't know him. Didn't Yu Huan run away from the marriage? This time, the Shadow Priest didn't cause trouble for her. It's strange. Hey, let's go in and take a look. This was a conference held in the form of a banquet. The content was about the experiment that Shi Shang had participated in. Half of the people opposed the experiment, while the other half supported it. Grandpa Yu, on the other hand, was against it. Shi Shang didn't tell Grandpa Yu about this experiment, so Grandpa Yu didn't know that she had participated in it. If he had known, he probably wouldn't be sitting here so calmly now. The young men and women were all chased to a particularly spacious area. The Shadow Festival was going to attend this conference, so Shi Shang couldn't go in and could only wait for him outside. She found a corner and sat down. She scanned the scene, but she didn't see the female lead. She didn't even see the girl from before. If the female lead didn't go on stage, there would be no show to watch. Eat some melon seeds. Xiao Huan. Ying Shang stuck his face out from behind. What are you doing here? Where's the shadow sacrifice? Haven't you been following us all this time? The brat asked even though he already knew the answer. Ying Shang pursed his lips and sat opposite Shi Shang. Xiao Huan, you and Ying Ji are avoiding me. Shi Shang. Did she need to avoid him? Ever since you came, Ying Ji has been ignoring me less and less. Ying Shang suddenly started to complain. If it weren't for you, Ying Ji wouldn't have treated me like this. Shi Shang. If it wasn't for the young man, why did this development seem a little off? After going around in circles, he realized that Ying Ji was his true love. He begged for a normal brain circuit. It really wasn't right for him to like himself. The heavens didn't tolerate it, young man. It was as if he had cared a husky. Ying Shang didn't know how many times he had practiced this series of complaints, but they hit Shi Shang's head without pause. He looked aggrieved, as if Shi Shang had really done something shameless and snatched his man. Shi Shang felt very wronged. Feng Ci was hers to begin with. To be shameless, a part of you belonged to Feng Ci, so you were indirectly mine too. Why did he make her feel like a mistress now? This world was poisonous. She flipped the table and stopped playing. Where was I's sword? Miss you, we meet again. Shaya appeared at the right time and prevented a tragedy. Shaya didn't look like he had snuck in, so he was most likely the son of some high-ranking official. Shaya didn't see Ying Shang, so he directly extended his hand to invite him. May I have the honor of having a dance with you, miss you? Shi Shang's expression was cold. No. Shaya wasn't angry. He elegantly put his hands behind his back. Miss you, I have a deal to discuss with you. What do you think? Shi Shang's expression was still cold. What kind of deal can we discuss? I'm not talking about it. The male lead didn't talk to the female lead about a deal, but came to look for her instead. There must be something wrong. Maybe he wanted her to die again. How scary. Miss you, I think it's better if you listen to the details first. I don't want to hear it. Shaya. No matter what Shaya said, Shi Shang refused to listen. Shaya had never met someone so difficult to deal with. She couldn't do anything to Shi Shang. Ah. Just as the two of them were in a stalemate, there was suddenly a scream from the crowd. The scene was chaotic, and everyone ran towards the exit. What's wrong? Why are you running? What's happening? Ah. Don't come over. There seemed to be something rampaging in the crowd, and people were knocked around. When some of them scattered, Shi Shang saw what was causing the chaos. It was a few huge scorpions, and their poisonous stingers were constantly stabbing the people around them. Those who were stung only needed a second to fall to the ground. Their eyes rolled back, and they were foaming at the mouth. They wouldn't stop twitching, and within 10 seconds, they would stop breathing. They're coming in. Run. A group of people ran towards the main entrance. 2 of the scorpions stayed behind while the rest chased after the crowd. Shi Shang looked through the crowd in the direction where the shadow sacrifice had left. There were scorpions there too, and she seemed to hear someone calling for help from afar. She got up and walked over, but Shaya blocked her. Miss you, there are scorpions over there. You'll die if you go over. Shi Shang didn't say a word. He stepped on the table beside him and easily jumped to the opposite side, rushing into the scorpions. These scorpions emerged from the ground. The ground was full of potholes, and scorpions kept coming out. If one wasn't careful, they would step on them. Shi Shang stepped on the iron sword and flew into the scorpions. The shadow sacrifice was retreating with Grandpa Yu when Shi Shang stopped the iron sword in front of them. Come up. Grandpa Yu was surprised by Shi Shang's iron sword, but he didn't have time to ask. With the help of the shadow sacrifice, he got on the iron sword. As the shadow sacrifice was about to go up, a poisonous stinger was suddenly thrown from the side. The shadow sacrifice leaned back and dodged the stinger. The scorpion didn't hit anyone. It angrily swept the surroundings with its poisonous stinger before aiming it at the shadow sacrifice again. Shi Shang realized that the shadow sacrifice didn't have much kung fu. He didn't even know how to fight. She jumped off the iron sword and went straight for the shadow sacrifice. Chapter 1877. Shi Shang grabbed Yingxi and brought him back to the iron sword. Then, he drove the iron sword away from this place. "Help me! Help me! Help!" The cries for help continued, but they could only watch the iron sword leave. Despair, helplessness, and pain intertwined to form a big net that enveloped all of them. When Shi Shang was outside, he saw Yingsheng. After all, he was part of Feng Xiai. Shi Shang got Yingsheng up and flew out of the underground city. There were people pouring out of every entrance of the underground city, which proved that it was not just one place that was attacked. The entire underground city was affected, and the surface was not any better. All kinds of huge desert creatures were attacking the surface. What the hell is going on? Grandpa, you seem to have aged a few years in an instant. Rongguang Base's defense has always been the best. How could these things break through so easily? They did not notice it at all. There's a mole. Shi Shang sat on the edge and looked down indifferently. Since there was no problem with the defense, it must be someone else. There was no point in guessing. The previous attack must have been done on purpose. It was very likely that these two attacks were ordered by the same person. Who would associate with these things? Grandpa Yu's eyes flashed with anger. These things will kill everyone. No one answered Grandpa Yu. Shi Shang did not know, so he did not answer. Yingxi stared down thoughtfully. Yingsheng was still in a daze and could be ignored. It was chaos below. Shi Shang saw Jian Yi in the crowd. Beside her was the girl from before. This girl was Jian Yi, Jian Yi's half-sister. Jian Yi's unhappy life in the Jian family was partly because of her stepmother and partly because of her sister. Jian Yi grabbed Jian Yi tightly. Her face was pale. The desert creatures that appeared from time to time made her scream. There were several times when she almost got Jian Yi involved. There was no need to guard Rongguang Base anymore. Everyone was evacuating. Jian Yi and Jian Yi also ran in the direction of the car. However, Jian Yi was in a lot of trouble. When they reached the car, there was only one seat left. Jian Jie pushed Jian Yi away without hesitation and got into the car. Jian Yi staggered from the push. Coincidentally, there was a poisonous scorpion next to her. She turned over and avoided the poisonous scorpion. The car started, and yellow sand filled the sky. The distance between her and Jian Yi was infinitely lengthened. Even if she used the speed of a 100-meter dash, she would not be able to catch up. Shi Shang face-bombed. It was another trick. I really don't understand what these people are thinking. You said that the other party had been loyal to you before, so it's normal for you to take her away. But this person had wanted him to die before, yet he still saved her at the critical moment. Wasn't he seeking his own death? There were always people who said that the main character was kind, the supporting female character was vicious, and the supporting male character was disgusting. But the truth was that the protagonist's aura protected the protagonist and allowed them to be kind. No matter what they did, they would always be able to avert danger. However, if the cannon fodder dared to seek death, then they could only die. Those who could evacuate had already done so, and those who couldn't were mostly dead. Jian Yi, the female lead, definitely wouldn't die so easily. She relied on her own strength to fight her way out of the encirclement, and then had a bloody encounter with Xiaoye. This seemed to be the first time Xiaoye and Jian Yi had met. Shi Shang suspected that this was where the plot really began. In the previous desert, there should be a flashback later. For example, Jian Yi had actually met Xiaoye in it long ago, and there was also an indescribable thing. When the two of them spent more time together, the truth would slowly be revealed. Please call me the King of Tricks. Shi Sheng found a safe place to land. Grandpa, you seem to have not recovered from the blow of the destruction of Rongguang Base in such a short period of time. Shi Sheng didn't want to provoke the old man at this time, so she quietly sat down next to Shadow Sacrifice. Shadow Sacrifice held her hand and squeezed slightly. What do you think about today's incident? Did you find out anything about the incident last time? Shi Sheng didn't answer but asked instead. Shadow Sacrifice's fingertips rubbed the back of Shi Sheng's hand. No, we don't know who let the desert lizards in. Then, do you think these two incidents are related? Yes. Shadow Sacrifice answered very firmly. There couldn't be such a coincidence that two bases were invaded in the same way. Shi Sheng supported his chin with one hand. Then, there's a very important question now. Shadow Sacrifice pulled her hand to his lips and pressed his lips against her fingertips. What is it? Shi Sheng's palm was hot, and the hot air spurted into her palm, making her feel numb. She looked away. If the mastermind behind this isn't human, then forget it. If he is, then he can at least control these desert creatures. This isn't good news. The desert was filled with these huge mutated creatures. If someone could control these desert creatures, then he or she would be invincible in the desert. Who do you think it is? Shadow Sacrifice put her hand down and held it with both hands. He changed his question. Who do you suspect? Xia. Although Xia was the male lead, his appearance every time was too coincidental. It was so coincidental that people couldn't help but suspect him. Moreover, weren't some plots where the main character was the final boss? So, there was nothing wrong with her guessing Xia now. Xia? Grandpa Yu's voice sounded from behind. His tone was strange. Huan Er, how do you know this name? Have you seen Xia before? Why? Is Xia very famous? Shi Sheng looked at Grandpa Yu in confusion. Grandpa Yu moved over from the side and squeezed the still confused Yin Shang away. He looked anxious. Tell me first. When did you see Xia? Just now. Shi Sheng described the scene of him meeting Xia at the venue. Grandpa Yu's expression turned worse as he listened. In the end, the veins on his forehead were already popping as he muttered, "He's back for revenge. He's really back for revenge." Shi Sheng was speechless. It was another F*King side plot. Who was Xia? Grandpa Yu was completely out of it. He kept muttering that sentence. His gaze was unfocused as if he had fallen into some distant memory. Do you know Xia? Shi Sheng could only look at Shadow Sacrifice. Shadow Sacrifice shook his head. He didn't know any Xia. They didn't know the news, so they could only wait for Grandpa Yu to return to normal before asking. Anyway, the male lead's background must be tragic. Looking at Grandpa Yu's state, he probably had nothing to do with the male lead's tragic situation. Asterisk, this is a fake group. Little fairy. My brain cells are all dead. I don't want to write a small drama. Cherub, if you don't write a small drama, you won't have votes. Little fairy. I won't have votes even if I write one. Cherub. You'll have votes if you write one. Little fairy. Didn't I write one? Why don't you guys vote? It's Monday today. Are you sure you don't want to vote? If you don't vote, you'll lose me. I don't care. Make a scene and ask for votes. Only votes can save my dead brain cells. Cherub. System, trick. Chapter 1878. It's getting dark. Ying Ji pulled Shi Sheng up. Many things appear in the desert at night. The nearest base is 50 kilometers away. We won't be able to make it today. Let's find a place to hide first. Ying Ji, there's a group of rocks over there. Ying Shang ran over from afar. We can go over there. Okay. Seeing Ying Ji agree, Ying Shang immediately beamed with joy. Shi Sheng glanced at Ying Shang strangely. Ying Shang snorted and packed his things to leave. Shi Sheng's mouth twitched. He poked Ying Shang. Hey, don't you think Ing Shang is weird? Did this brat really like Ing Ji? What did it feel like to like himself? And this maneuver, too, was awesome. Hashtag my love rival is my wife. What should I do? Waiting online. Urgent hashtag, I can't read all of his thoughts. Ing Ji's expression darkened. He's growing very quickly. Don't interact with him alone. What did you give him when you created him? Shang lowered his voice. There's something in his body that belongs to you. You have to take it back. Something that belongs to me? Ing Ji was surprised. He tried to recall. I didn't. His eyes darkened. He obviously thought of something. He gripped Shang's hand. Let's find a place to rest first. Host, don't you feel guilty at all? The system asked. What do you mean? Although Ing Shang is an AI, he already has his own thoughts. He's like a living person. He even has Feng Xi's aura in him. How can you do this to him? This multiple choice question was a very difficult one for many people. But for the host, it wasn't difficult at all. Although she was a bit irritated at the start, she had always been in contact with Shadow Sacrifice. She avoided Shadow Sacrifice if she could and ignored him if she couldn't. No matter if it was her words or actions, there was nothing that could be misunderstood. This proved that she was firmly on Shadow Sacrifice's side from the start. But did she really not hesitate at all? Indecisiveness leads to trouble. Do you think I'm someone who would make such a low-level mistake? Shang snorted. Okay, the host really isn't. This system has nothing to say. Please continue. While Shang was talking to the system, they had already reached the group of rocks. The location in the middle was very good. It could shelter them from the wind and sand. The location was also quite high, so they did not have to worry about being attacked by desert creatures. It was a very good shelter. Shang went up first and made sure it was safe to let them come up. The sky darkened bit by bit, and the temperature plummeted. The cold wind blew straight into their bodies. Ing Ji pulled Shang into his arms. Ing Shang sat on the edge and glanced at the two of them before looking away as if nothing had happened. Grandpa Yu called out hoarsely, come here. Shang moved to Grandpa Yu's side, and Grandpa Yu looked at Shadow Priest. Little priest, you come over too. When the two of them were by his side, Grandpa Yu sighed sadly. This matter has nothing to do with you. Xiao Ji, take Huan to the north tomorrow and find Huan parents. They will protect you. Is Shaya scary? Shang was confused. Grandpa Yu's eyes were cloudy. He shook his head and said, Shaya isn't scary. What's scary is his ability. When Shaya was very young, he was still living in Glorious Base. His parents were ordinary people. When they were in Glorious Base, they belonged to the lower class and were often bullied. Because they were weak, in order to survive, Shaya's parents could only endure. Even though Glorious Base had rules, there were always areas that could not be monitored in such a big base. Once, Shaya's mother was raped by a few people. This incident did not get out of hand because those people who raped her had backing. In the end, Shaya's mother washed her face with tears all day long. Who would have thought that after a few days, someone would find out that those people had died tragically? In fact, with one look, it was obvious that it was not man-made. Everyone practically turned the base upside down, but they could not find any traces of the desert creatures. Some people said that these people deserved their retribution. In order not to cause panic, the higher-ups gradually suppressed this matter. However, after that, as long as anyone bullied Shaya's parents, they would all die. The way they died was all torn to pieces by the desert creatures. There was no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. The matter of Shaya controlling the desert creatures was still exposed. In the base, the desert creatures were the incarnation of the devil. Since Shaya could command the devils, that meant that he was on the same side as the devil. The people in the base were furious and wanted to execute Shaya. The higher-ups felt that Shaya's ability could actually be used, but at that time, the public was too angry. If it was not handled well, it could very well cause a riot. In the end, the higher-ups discussed and decided that if Shaya was willing to be used by them, they would think of a way to save his life. If he was unwilling, they could only appease the public's anger. Of course, Shaya was unwilling and thought of a way to escape. However, those people caught his parents and used them to threaten them. In order to prevent Shaya from being threatened, his parents ended their own lives. They forced Shaya's parents to their deaths and completely angered Shaya. At that time, Shaya could not control too many desert creatures. Because of his anger, he summoned too many desert creatures. Instead, he was devoured and buried alive by the desert creatures. They all thought that Shaya was dead, but unexpectedly, he was still alive. Not only did he not die, but he even came back for revenge. Grandpa Yu trembled as he grabbed Shi Shang's arm. "Huan Er, leave tomorrow. Don't stay here." Back then, Shaya's ability already made us afraid. Now, his ability has increased many times. "Grandpa can't let you stay here. It's not up to us to leave now." Shi Shang patted the back of Grandpa Yu's wrinkled hand. "Grandpa, don't worry. No one in this world can take my life." "Huan Er." Grandpa Yu's face was stern. "I'm not scaring you. You have no idea how scary Shaya's ability is. You're the only heir of the Yu family. I can't let anything happen to you. Haven't we already seen it before?" Shi Shang spread his hands. The incident at Glory Base was most likely the male lead's doing, but why did he look for her before? Could it be that he wanted to use her to threaten Grandpa Yu and let him have a taste of how it felt to be controlled by someone else? Most Avengers would have such a mentality. However, Shaya was the male lead. His thoughts should not be so superficial. Shi Shang thought about a few possibilities in his heart, but he felt that something was not quite right. Perhaps he was just that superficial? Sometimes, one could not think too much. "Xiao Ji, I'll leave Huan Er to you. You must send her to her parents safely. Please." Grandpa Yu could not persuade Shi Shang, so he just entrusted Shi Shang to the Shadow Priest. #hashtag today's manicured ticket hashtag, meow meow. Nanju. Feng Yu, today is the last day of the month. See if you have any monthly tickets in your pockets. If you do, then quickly vote. It'll expire anyway. If you can't vote, please look at the top post and the welfare group to exchange your tickets with Shimi. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.